Okay.
We're on.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our May 10th Oak Island Town Council regular meeting. We've had a number of special meetings with budgets, and we have another one this week, as well as a special meeting scheduled for May 17th to release the budget work that council and administration has worked on. So I want to call the meeting to order and ask Councilman Martin if he would do the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for the blessings in our lives. Thank you for another day in your presence that guides us on our journey step by step. Light the path with your word. Provide us with knowledge and wisdom as we conduct business for the town of Oak Island and for the community that surrounds us. Dear Lord, I pray that you're with our first responders and keep your eye on them, watch over them, protect them. Be with us in this leadership role tonight. Be with our community. Lay your heart on them and whatever their needs are. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. So we'll begin this evening with presentations, proclamations, and recognitions. We'll start with Safe Boating Week. Would you like to come up? Would you like to introduce yourself? And
my name is Dawn Smith. I'm the Public Education Officer of Flotilla 10-5, which is Southport, Oak Island, and all the way down to Charlotte. That's what the flotilla runs with. And I'm here for the National Safe Boating Week proclamation. Let's see if I can figure out how to work this. Yep. Oh, there we go. It's National Safe Boating Week is exactly what it says. It's national. Since 1957, the Coast Guard Auxiliary has been doing this, and with the gracious town of Oak Island, we have another proclamation. We do appreciate that. And what we like to do is we like to push boating safety classes, public education events, like we're having a public education on boating safely. That's on the 28th in BSL. And we have another one on the 25th of June, which is down here in Oak Island on the pier, by the pier. We all know how wonderful Oak Island is for boaters and kayakers and everything else, right? And that's why we push this, because last year we're starting to tick up on deaths due to drowning, alcohol, boating accidents. In North Carolina, 173 incidents between May and July of last year, right? And of those, 19 incidents were fatal and 23 people died. And I don't know if you've been looking at the news lately up at Lake Waccamaw. Was it kayaker, or was it a canoe or kayak? Kayak turned over, couldn't get it back up, person drowned, didn't have a life jacket on, okay, and that's just recently. I know Oak Island Rescue has been out, has 60 rescues, saved 5 lives, and Station Oak Island, the Coast Guard unit just down the road, has also done 60 rescues, 15 boats, and done 438 boardings to try to get people to understand alcohol and boating don't mix and wear your life jacket. And that's what we're trying to push throughout this week. And your proclamation is going to help that out. I think we covered this. Water rescue, just down the road. We also work with the Wildlife Sheriff Department. And it's a hand-in-hand thing. And we really do appreciate it. If you're looking to do anything, paddle boat and stuff, please wear your life jackets. Going to always push that through this time. Like I said, my boating training classes are at least once a month. And there's also something called a vessel safety check. And what they do, it's free. They'll even come to your house on occasion. You have to call them, make arrangements, and they'll check your boat over, make sure you're in compliance with all applicable federal laws and regulations and some with the state. And if you don't have, let's say, a horn, you don't get fined. But if the Coast Guard or the sheriffs come on board, you'll get a fine, all right? So it's a good idea to ask the flotilla, get a vessel exam from us, or even the Power Squadron has one that you can do with them, okay? They're our partners in that. All right, and obey the rules of the road for boaters. I think that was it. So, again, please be safe out there, pass the word. If you have any questions at all, we have a website. It's just flotilla10-05.org. Or you can ask me. They have my information, the flotilla does. And that's pretty much all I have for the board.
Good.
Do I do anything?
Thank you. We'll do the proclamation if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll have the document ready for you next week.
That's
However,
fine.
we'll read this into the minutes
Okay.
so it's official. So safe boating, I think it's important, as you said, that begins with preparation, that much of what happens is a result of human error. And whereas an average of 650 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the United States, 75% of those are fatalities caused by drowning, and the vast majority of those accidents are caused by human error, poor judgment. The boat doesn't make mistakes. It could also be caused by equipment or environmental factors, whereas a significant number of boaters who lose their lives by drowning each year would be alive today had they worn life jackets. Therefore, I, as mayor, do hereby support the goals of the Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 21st to 27th of 2022 a National Safe Boating Week and start of the year-round effort to promote safe boating in and around Oak Island. And on your behalf, it is now so. So thank you very much for coming and for sharing your information. And Lisa, you'll get that document to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Problem.
With a seal. Thank you so much
Thank you
this
for your
evening.
time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
So next on our agenda is the Oak Island Beach Preservation Society, who has scholarship awards.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. I am pleased to announce that this year's inaugural scholarships for the Beach Preservation Society, it was made available to all Brunswick County private and public schools, so they're preparing for their future education. And preference was given to students that were doing ocean, coastal environments or related systems were given. The criteria for the scholarship was an acceptance letter from a college or university, a cumulative GPA of 3.0, and a one-page essay. Oh, I gotta figure out how to. Oop. Technical difficulties. There we go. Our first recipient is Kayla Brennan. Her hometown was Leland. She attended North Brunswick High School. She is going to Brunswick Community College. An intended career is biomedical engineering. We'd like to congratulate Kayla. Let me see if I can get Jaden Richardson. Will you please stand up? Jaden is a recipient for one of our scholarships. His hometown is Winnebago. He is currently in school at Brunswick County Early College High School and has been accepted to NC State University with a career intended of chemistry. Jaden, I'd like to give you the scholarship check and wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Another winner is Dulce Dominguez. She is hometown in Ocean Isle. She currently is also at Brunswick County Early College High School. She has been accepted to Appalachian State University with an intended career in nursing. We'd like to thank also the town for participating in our auction, which has greatly made these scholarships possible by all the sales we had. We also would like to thank our town for supporting these young students in their futures. So with that being said, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. And we were disappointed that we couldn't get all of the scholarship winners here tonight because this is, my goodness, this is the week before graduation in Brunswick County. And there are lots of other things going on besides a town council meeting where nobody of the group lives. So we're so grateful to Jaden and his mother for coming down here to be present for this. As you know, the Beach Preservation Society has a mission of primarily education and community engagement to protect the beach and make it better for the community and all users now and in the future. We think that education in this way hasn't been addressed before by our organization, and we're so very grateful to everybody who participated in that auction, in the current ongoing raffle for Shabumi Shade. Everything that you do for your membership, your donations and so forth, goes into things that impact the community directly. We don't have any paid staff. This is what we do, education and community engagement for a better beach. If I may, do you mind if I read a little bit of your essay? Okay. The essays that we got from our applicants were extremely interesting. Jaden's was well targeted to this scholarship. He was born in San Diego, where his mother was also born and raised. That's a beautiful city in California, and the whole city benefits from the beautiful California beaches. After moving a few times, my mother and I made our way to Brunswick County, where we finally found a home near the local beaches. He goes on with some other things about that. Our beaches are not only special due to their beauty, but due to the effect they have on the community around them. This is one reason I'm part of service clubs such as Beta Club, where we scheduled a beach cleanup across multiple beaches. It's also why I'm pursuing chemistry at NC State. I want to get my chemistry degree at NC State and come back to the area to work. There's a key. I want to use the knowledge I get from going to school to better our community and beaches. I want to go to school so I can obtain the correct tools needed to better my beaches and my community. Jaden, you represent some of the best among our students, and we're so proud to have you as one of our inaugural scholarship winners. Thank you very much. Fight for this young man so he may slip out early.
Thank you very much.
Jaden, before you leave, you're far ahead of the curve, sir. Keep on keeping on. Proud of you.
Next on the agenda is the adjustment or approval of the agenda itself.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to remove items 6.5 and 6.6 from new business. They are respectively a review of the Code of Ethics for council and board members, and also the charge statements for various advisory boards. Given the substantive nature of these items, I believe they would be better served and the community would be better enlightened if we dealt with them in July post-budget.
Is that a motion?
I think the motion comes after we agree to adjust it, correct? Yep.
Discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended,
Just the regular agenda.
the regular agenda as amended, sorry.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? And all opposed? I couldn't see it quickly enough, so unanimous. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is public comment. So public comment, as you know, are the general topics and agenda items that come from you, our citizens. We ask that you state your name and your address before addressing council, that you observe the 3-minute time limit for public comments as described in the rules and council rules of procedure, and that if you have written comments, if you'd please provide those to our town clerk, Lisa Stites. If you can also do so after the fact. It would just help with accurate, she does a great job, but it really facilitates note-taking. So Lisa, do we have anyone who signed up?
Yes, ma'am. Mariah Brazil.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mariah Brazil, and I reside at 113 Southeast 15th Street on the island. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight. I have responsibility for a property located at 109 West Beach, which is an oceanfront property. The owners of this property are currently living in England, so I am here before you tonight speaking on their behalf. Beach renourishment has become an absolute nightmare for this property and its guests, not because of the beach renourishment itself, rather because what the neighbors on either side of this property have done to prevent our guests from accessing the beach. The owners of 107 and 111 West Beach are treating the town-provided, taxpayer-funded, shared access points as their own private access to the beach. They have done so by installing sand fencing, pickets, no trespassing signs, and threatening to have our guests arrested if they continue to cross over the fencing and pickets to travel to the assigned shared accesses. At this point, the guests of 109 West Beach must climb over sand fencing and pickets, traverse over the dune itself in an illegal manner, or pack up their children and walk down West Beach Drive to arrive at a public access. If you'll view the photographs I've provided in your packets, you'll note that photo 1 shows the view from the oceanfront deck of 109 West Beach looking towards the west. In that photo, you can clearly see the fencing blocking my guest from the shared beach access point, which is pictured in photo 2. Photo number 3 shows the same view, this one looking towards the east. That photograph also reflects the lengths that the owners of 107 West Beach have gone to prevent my guests from accessing the eastern shared access point. Photos number 4 and 5 show that access point, which includes pickets around the access egress itself. These shared access points were never meant to be privately owned access points. By allowing this to continue even one more day opens up a huge liability if someone gets hurt navigating the obstacles. I have spoken with multiple Town of Oak Island staff members and been advised that this issue is either out of their purview or out of their control. I respectfully request that Town Council take immediate, definitive, and decisive action against these owners and stop them from blocking access to the beach from my guests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ani Fayed.
Hey guys, my name is Hani Fayyad. I've been here since 91, and then I live on 33rd Northeast. And I have to explain seafood over the building. And then what I did is I beautified the building. I remodeled I did update the whole building, and then I remodeled it. And then I cleaned everything around there. And then I've been dealing with Mr. Edwards about it, I emailed, I'm from back and forth. And then we have an issue on the east side of the building towards Mansfield's. There was a little sidewalk made out of lumber. It's a decking board. And it was old and rotten, and then it'd been there for nobody knows how long. Well, I decided to take it out. I pour concrete on it, instead. And then so I tied the handicap ramp towards it, and then I put guardrails on it, and then I put the palm trees on the other side. So I was asked to get a survey done. And then we get the survey, and then it seems like the sidewalk is 6 inches over at the front and 4 inches over on the rear. I'm here to ask for a road encroachment, if I can, and then we agree with Mr. Edwards to take the palm trees off, and then the guardrails off. And then the only thing I'm asking is if we could leave the sidewalk with the 6-inch overhanging towards the city, whatever you want to call it. I have the survey. It shows, it shows the front is 6 inches. 6 inches over, and then the rear end is 4 inches over. And then it's been like that for nobody knows how long. The only things I did is I took the old one out, and then so I put cement instead. And that's the only issue now we have about that. And then we're trying to figure the parking. The parking, I think, it's been resolved. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
I have a copy of the survey. I could give it to one of you, to one of you all, and then I have emails, and Mr. Edwards could explain everything what's going on. I'm just burned out of this. I've been working on the building for the past year.
I used an acronym. The ROW is right of way, and what Hani was talking about is that he wants to get a right-of-way encroachment agreement, and that would actually come from the council. And my memory of the encroachment was a little bit more, but I wanted to talk with Mr. Kelly about it a little bit more in detail, because some of the things that new buildings had to provide is a sidewalk, and that's usually located in the right-of-way. So after I talked with David, Mr. Kelly about it again, I think that since we do require sidewalks as part of new development, that this encroachment may be able to resolve without a right-of-way encroachment agreement. And that was, I put that in an email to Mr. Hani today as well.
Shouldn't that be an issue that's on like an agenda item?
It should be an agenda item, and he spoke with Ms.
Okay.
Seitz about the
Okay.
protocol, but he still wanted to come before you today
Okay.
and discuss it. He's trying to open up for Memorial Day.
Okay.
So does board have discussion or action in this?
The-
Is it for us to approve, or is it already in
This
resolution?
is just public comments. It's, I don't
Okay,
know
so there's
protocol.
no action to be taken here.
It's not on the agenda as an action item
Okay.
at this point.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks for taking the time to be listening to what I have to say, by the way. I mean, I'm kind of nervous in front of everybody. I don't do this every day. I mean,
You did fine. You did fine. Is his next point of contact, Mr. Edwards, with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you'd follow up with him
yes, ma'am.
at whatever time he
Yeah, I'll do
helps.
whatever he says. I just need to open up, ma'am. I mean,
Well, good luck with your new business.
yes, ma'am. And thank you, guys.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, Mr. Edwards, the administration is going to recommend a solution to this issue, or has recommended?
After a couple of correspondences with him this morning, I looked at it a little bit further, and I want to talk with Mr. Kelly about a way to resolve this without him having to come to get a right-of-way encroachment agreement, because there is a requirement for new businesses to put sidewalks in, and this could be a solution.
So this could be resolved without formal council action.
That's correct. That's what
Because-
I'm thinking. I want to discuss it with Mr. Kelly and see if he agrees with you.
Clearly, he needs an expedited solution.
I've already told him that I would not stay his opening because of the encroachment agreement, that if he did not receive one, if we had to come back before you, then y'all didn't get him one, he just had to remove the encroachment portion.
Well, then I'll leave it to the administration to continue to work on this and resolve it without formal council action. But I, for one, am not going to vote on something that we haven't seen reduced to writing if it's actually a council action item. If it's within your discretion, then by all means, gentlemen, solve it, because we need all the businesses we can get.
Did you understand all that, honey? Did you understand all that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just tired and burned out. I mean,
All right.
Understood. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you.
Yeah, I need this,
The
man.
building looks great.
Thank you.
Joyce Martin?
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I am Joyce Martin. I live at 129 Northwest 15th Street. I'm a full-time resident of Oak Island and newly physically disabled. I love the beach, and that's why I moved here. Now I am physically disabled. It is very difficult to get on the beach. I have spoken with Mr. Bill Kraft on several occasions about this problem. He's been very informative and helpful and kind to get back to me. He has told me that the handicapped accesses will be in place by June the 1st, 2022. Most of the mats that have been placed so far are too steep due to the grade of the hill for a disabled person to use safely without difficulty. It is my hope that the mats will be corrected to appropriate walkways at lower levels so people with disabilities will be able to go to the beach without risk of injury. I am all for beach renourishment, and I understand the need to protect our coastline, but physically disabled persons need proper acceptable access to the beach. I took pictures and wrote a description of each access, which has been given to you. I apologize, the pictures got out of order when I sent them to the printer. The 57th Street West access is excellent. Also, 74th Southeast is pretty good. Otherwise, the remaining accesses marked handicapped accessible are not so. This island is mostly retirees, and many have health issues that would make it difficult to climb the hills at the handicapped accesses. An able-bodied person would have difficulty using these accesses too. We also need to consider all the vacationers coming to the island where adults and children may be disabled or recovering from surgery and need the use of a wheelchair. The accesses are at such a steep grade, I can't imagine trying to push a wheelchair up the hill and trying to hold on to it on the other side before it wants to fly down the other side. Not very safe for the disabled person, nor the transporting chair, nor the one transporting the chair. My question for each of you is, what do you plan to do to correct this problem, and when will it be done? Please don't wait for someone to get hurt and incur a liability. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Andy Spradley.
What was the first name?
Andy.
Andy. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Andy Spradley. I am living at 114 Southeast 6th Street, and I'm here representing the Oak Island Beach Preservation. First of all, I want to say thank you to Strands Outfitters for sponsoring our educational plaque at the Point. This is brand new. It speaks to our Oak Island treasures, which are not like gold or silver, that sort of thing. This is talking about the animals, shells, and plants that are found in that area. And as you can see, like they were speaking before, we like to educate the public and everyone that's coming to visit. If you get a chance, go out and see how this looks. The Shibumi Shade Raffle is still going on. Okay, you have until the 30th to win a chance at this. Okay. Be sure to purchase because this will be your last chance this year. And again, a big thank you to Strands Outfitters for the donation of this shade, for their help and support putting that plaque in, and their continued support for Oak Island Beach Preservation. Finally, flash sweeps. This is where we've got a bunch of volunteers to come in and go to an access and clean it up in 5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes. When you get enough people, we can get it done. So we're doing our first flash sweep of this year. We have had to put these off because of a certain pandemic thing we heard that was going on. So May 23rd, 9 a.m. at the 14th Street Southeast access at 9 o'clock. This is the one right by the Ocean Crest Pier. We would love to see you come out. It'll be low tide. Come and meet your fellow beach lovers and help us clean it up. Watch on our Facebook page, on our web page for future. This will not be the only one this year, but we'll have future events and locations later. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, what day did you say the flash sweep is?
23rd.
23rd. That's a Monday. So we expect a lot of debris.
Now, do you work with the program that takes the trash for trees? Do you contribute your trash?
We have
For
not.
tree program?
We have not. I'd like to hear about this.
You
though.
might want to connect.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Lynn McDowell.
Good evening. My name is Lynn McDowell. I live at 6407 Tortoise Shell Court, and I'd like to express some concerns about an agenda item for the preliminary plat for major subdivision, the Orchards at Oak Island. I live in the Turtle Creek neighborhood. Many of my neighbors are here tonight because we are all a bit concerned about the plans for that area. Turtle Creek was set up to respect the environment, take care of the natural environment. It's kind of a unique area on the island. It also contains what we suspect is one of the largest undisturbed tracts of land there is. This subdevelopment would certainly impact that, and we just want to make sure that it's done in a very sensitive and respectful manner. That said, I have concerns about some discrepancies that appear to be present between the plans that were discussed, presented to the planning board at their meeting last month, and I suspect that's the basis for what you'll see tonight, and the marketing materials that are online at the orchards at Oak Island. The plans were presented as 9 single-family residences, people that will love trees. The developer is all about preserving the trees, said they'd plant more trees because the owners would rather see trees than the traffic on Oak Island Drive. That's great, but the first statement in their website, newly constructed luxury beach vacation rentals in the Myrtle Beach metro area. That does not sound like Oak Island to me. Another statement, it's being built as a community for weekly vacation rentals. The impact on the environment from 9 weekly rental houses, significantly different than from 9 homes that are ideally permanent residents, but at least second residences for people who will take care of the area. When they're weekly rentals, I don't even know if the accommodations tax will cover the cost of picking up after 9 more weekly renters, especially in that area, which I said, if you're not familiar with it, you ought to come down and visit. Another thing that they state is that it's being marketed as investment property. They have a team of property and asset management professionals who appear to be based in Provo, Utah. Again, just some concerns that I hope you will get to the bottom of what the plans really are for the development that's proposed. I know that we can't control uses to a great extent, but I sure would like to have the plans clean up front so that we all know what we're walking into. One other small discrepancy that I would like to maybe have town staff look at, and this is a county issue, so I don't know who would best look at it, but the appraisal cards in the GIS system for the county for this parcel, all of a sudden in the 2022 appraisal card shows it as 5 acres, whereas the plans have been presented as being 1.87 acres, so I'm very confused what's going on with the other 3+ acres. Thank you.
Thank you. John Naramore.
John Naramore, 109 Southeast 67th Street, Oak Island. As far as what Lynn said, concerned about the orchards and the proposal, I guess, that the town brought up last week or the week before about adding a boardwalk across the wetlands or the freshwater ponds behind us. I'm not sure if that's totally approved, but we're totally against that. As you know, those are the largest freshwater ponds that are on our island, and it's part of Turtle Creek. And to put a boardwalk across that is not, I would think that that's not something that y'all would like. And it's for beach access for the 9 residents, the rentals that they're building. And I don't think that that's necessary, and I don't know who's going to pay for that either. But it affects our wetlands, the dunes. You know, there'd have to be access to the dunes. And what happened a couple years ago in the one of the hurricanes, there was a pathway. There's 5 boardwalks behind us that on Loggerhead that had beach access, and there was a small walkway. Well, AISA took that small walkway, which is about 2 foot wide, and made it about 25 foot wide and flooded the ponds there, in which got double water down the street and from behind. The ponds had, fish, alligators. I mean, it destroyed because salt water got into those freshwater ponds. And so I don't know what the plan would be for that walkway to go, through the dunes when they hadn't even the town hadn't even repaired that dune. It's wide open right now and flat. And, you know, we're doing all this dune work at the west end, but for some reason, it's being ignored there at 67th Street, where the pond's at. And it needs to be rebuilt so we don't have that flooding again and take out the family, the homes that were destroyed by that hurricane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget Armstrong?
Thank you all very much for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you to all my neighbors who joined us. I'm going to say a lot of the same points as my neighbors did, but from a different angle.
Could you state your name and your
Yes,
address,
sorry,
please?
Bridget Armstrong, 117 Southeast 67th Street. And they talked about the hurricane in Isaias. It completely leveled the walkway, and that walkway is particularly accessed by two rental properties that's all they've made their own access. And my husband and I sit on our back deck and constantly say, please don't stay off the dunes. Please don't let your kids dig in the dunes. And it's constant. They do it all the time. The renters don't care. They don't care about, you know, the dunes. They're here for a week. They want to enjoy it. I don't blame them, but they need to care about our environment. So after Isaias, my husband and I lost a car. That's how much water, ocean water, got into our pond. We lost a car, completely flooded underneath our house. So much damage was done, not just to our personal property, but to the pond. We had dead fish, we had dead animals, we had a stench that was unbelievable. So what our community did, because we were told in the past that the town was not going to be responsible for this pond. So what we have done is our community has joined together and we pay a pond preservation company to bring our pond back to health after that hurricane. And it was substantial. The stench alone was unbelievable. No one from the town came to look. No one came to, you know, see all the dead wildlife that was there. We had to hire an outside company to come and preserve the pond and bring it back to its beauty and its health. And now this proposal and they come every month, and the pond is back to full life. We're seeing nature back. Things are wonderful. But this proposal really puts all of that hard work that we have done as a community at risk. And I feel like it's not fair to the residents who put, you know, I'm a full-time resident here, and I feel that it's just not fair that, you know, the developers can come in, and I understand development, and I'm not against the development per se. I'm against how it's being proposed as a complete rental property, total investment. That means no one's gonna have any buy-in to this. No one's gonna care about our dunes or our wildlife. And it's very concerning for me, and I think it's going to be incredibly impactful, not just for our little community that is very tight-knit, but for the community at large. This is just a slippery slope that we're all gonna go down if we continue to allow this to happen. And to allow a walkway certainly across the pond that we have so carefully taken pride in is unfathomable to me. And I ask that you all take that into consideration. And as Lynn had mentioned, if you have not been to the pond and you have not been to that natural water source, which is the Davis Canal run through, if you have not been there, I suggest that you come and look at this beautiful natural habitat that we have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any more signed up.
That's it. That's very good. Thank you for speaking. Adjustment, oh, I'm sorry, we're past that. Council reports. And mayor reports.
That's next. You good?
Right? Am I on target?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any council members have reports?
Why don't we start at the other end with my colleague, Mr. Martin?
I have nothing to report this month, Mayor.
Nothing to report, Mayor. One small thing, I learned at the budget meetings from Mr. Hatton that oftentimes people that are looking to contribute money and help in certain situations will give money to the utility department in case people cannot pay their utility bills. I was not aware of that, and I want to publicly say that option is available. And if you're looking for something to contribute to, there's some people in Oak Island that need help from time to time. So thanks for making us aware of that, Mr. Hatton.
No report.
I think we're all weary from budget world and the long march to the budget solution. Do want to congratulate the rec department on the Seafood and Auto Festival. It was extraordinarily well attended. And just note that the mayor and I and Councilman Kraft attended the hurricane conference, and although none of us really want to think about it, we're fast approaching hurricane season, and preparedness is the order of the day, beginning with your own personal and family plan for evacuation and survival. And that's something that we here, living on this wonderful island, need to take seriously. We've, I think, learned our lesson over the last couple of years. So on that note.
Is that it? I will defer commenting other than to say that there's a great deal of effort by both staff and council that have gone into the budget. Council has asked very difficult questions, has asked for numerous reports. It appears as though we've already tackled the sand tax of 5% and are able to stay within that 5%, fingers crossed, with some speculation as to growth. And in a similar fashion, our working parameters are to keep the budget at a flat rate of 23 cents, while very judiciously weighing all the things that the town has been doing without to deliver services, and we're making every effort to find ways to make that work. So I'm very proud of the council and the staff for their long days in providing the reports that are needed and allow us to do the work that's needed together. So I thank you. I thank you all. Moving then to the consent agenda. I send that back to you, Mr. Bott.
So I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Committee appointments. There is one committee appointment in front of us, and that is for the Par 3 golf course. Regardless of actions taken in the past, there's another Par 3 action to be taken later this meeting. There is a position open for a committee member for Par 3 within the South Harbor community. It's for a term ending in 2025, and the applicant that has submitted an application is Carol Schroeder.
I'm happy to move that motion, Madam Mayor.
I second.
All in favor? It also is unanimous. Congratulations, Carol. Is she here? There she is.
Yes.
Good job. Carol's been working on or with that committee even without having a formal position, so we appreciate all you contribute. Administrative reports is next on the agenda for Mr. Eads and Mr. Kelly.
Would you like to go first? My report will be in closed session about
Okay.
a legal matter.
Well, then I'll go ahead since you have nothing. Yes, ma'am. The second phase of the SAM project is pretty much complete. We've done a walkthrough with the contractor. There's a few more accesses, posts and ropes that they're still looking at putting. We're still looking at additional access points or moving forward with the access for the public. The planting is going to be discussed here in a few minutes. I did have the police chief going to talk about something, but I see he walked out of the room. But basically, we've been hearing about the speeding going on in town. So the town has purchased a speed machine. It's on a trailer. We park it around different sections of town. It monitors the speed. It gives us reports on how many cars were actually speeding, the timetable of when they were recorded speeding, morning, afternoon, people going to work, people coming home from work. Those kind of things. So that is something that we've heard from the public. Speeding is an item they want to be addressed, so we have taken the measures to be able to go ahead and purchase one of those to start parking it around town, seeing what's going on. Then we'll look at that. They have different varieties that we can put with it to be able to use the documentation. It doesn't write tickets, but it does sort of give us an idea of what things are going on. Some of the other things going on, the paver is supposed to be coming back to do the paving. We've talked to him, so we will get that done this year before the money runs out. And the other items that we have for discussion, we'll talk about those as we go through the meeting.
Mr. Kelly, Chief is back.
I went ahead and told him what he was going to take. I went ahead and gave your speech about the speed machine.
Thank you, sir.
That's it?
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
all he had? All right.
Thank you, Chief.
It was a good report.
Questions, Madam Mayor? Question about paving, which has been quite vexing. Are we going to get this contractor to complete the remainder of this before we launch into the heart of tourist season?
He said he would have the paving completed by the middle of June. So, yes, the tourists will be here, but we are trying to hold him to get the paving completed before this year's cycle is complete.
Very well. I'll hold you to that.
That's all I
I'll
can
ask
say.
you to hold him to that.
Yes.
Because this has gone on way too long.
And Scott has continued to call him every Monday to find out the status and usually follows up with him on Friday to see where they're at. And they have been sort of following the schedule at other areas they said they would be before they got to us. And I know they finished one of the projects last week, so there's a 3-day window and we're waiting to see what happens.
Thank you for your perseverance. This sounds like a contractor that needs to be urged to complete on time.
Speaking of that, Mr. Kelly, refresh my memory, what's the penalty for his failing to meet the date?
There is no liquidated damages on the paving contract. We did have something in the sand. The paving contract, we usually don't have that because it's a cost that's just going to be passed to us for that contract. We only had one bidder last time. So we had to rebid it twice to be able to get the contract awarded. So when we start adding other liquidated damages or other things on top of it for penalties, the pickings get even slimmer for us. And to understand, if we add $5,000 a day for liquidated damages, the cost per cubic yard probably went up 15 to 20 cents to make up that cost on the rear if they did get that. So it's a catch-22 on that part.
Thank you.
Did you recall, because I don't, what the percent of total roads, Oak Island roads, will have been done by the time this contractor is finished?
It's not a percentage of miles or roads, but it's a percentage of conditions.
Okay.
Council last 2 years looked at trying to get all the roads up to a certain percent. And this year in the budget, as you know, we have another engineer that will come in and reevaluate the roads after this paving cycle. And right now, Scott said he believes it gets us into about the 88 to 91 percentile. So we've moved up on our road grading, but we still have roads that are still out there that won't be paved, but we'll see how the roads that we have paved feather out with the new study.
That's excellent. Good work. Thank you to you and the staff.
A question to Chief Morris, if I may. I'll just stay there, sir. If, once you put up the machines to monitor the speeding, and once you determine that there are some areas that are being abused, what is our next option?
So we can take that under discussion with the town manager. If a speed limit needs to be changed, so of course, we can bring that up for discussion. If there's stop sign violations that are identified in that list, it'll bring that data to our attention where we can look at it objectively and make a good sound decision on how to go forward.
So on that, what I was looking at before, on some of the information that he provided, if we put a near stop sign, you'll see that the car is slowed down to a point. So we'll be able to see how many people, we won't know the exact number, but they may slow down to 5 miles an hour or whatever it is, go track them to that point. So we can set it up different ways to be able to monitor different things. But the speed bumps or things like that are something that I don't know if we want to get into the market on. Just because if we put them in one section of town, I think the whole section of town would want speed bumps. And I think right now people are used to the other way. We have the dips. We went in reverse. But it is something that the chief will be able to look at then and have a tool to come back with us to show us what actually is going on certain roads.
But once we determine that there is a problem,
If
besides
there-
determining there's a problem, we'll come up with a solution.
If there's a problem. Because a lot of the things that I read on this machine, it shows actually that the people standing there looking at something thinks it's 60 miles an hour, when actually it was 30 miles an hour. So most of the reports showed that there was not a speeding problem after they put these there. And yes, you'll hear the people saying, well, now the police has bought something, we've stuck there. People are going to slow down because they know the machine's there. But you can set it up for different intervals to be able to see what they were doing when they saw it too. So it's a pretty good tool I think the chief is going to have.
Yeah, and also just to expand on what Mr. Kelly said, if we have an area that has a number of accidents, then we can put the speed trailer out there and start monitoring the traffic if we have a construction site. So outside of complaints, it has other uses as well.
Sounds encouraging, thanks.
Department reports for the previous month are available at the town's website. For anyone who is interested, www.oakislandnc.gov/department. We ready to move on to old business?
Yes, ma'am.
The first is discussion of planning board priorities. John, can I ask you to start that off?
You certainly can. I put this item on the agenda, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, the confluence of the sand project and the request for direction and feedback from the planning board collided at the same time, and so the planning board had to yield. But I thought it only fair that we look at their documentation, which contains, by the way, as you undoubtedly have seen, beginning of a vision statement, anchoring it in several key documents. But on page 23, there are a set of recommendations. The first, and I think the principal recommendation from my point of view, has already been fulfilled. There will be a UDO audit. Council has already approved that. And so in a certain sense, the planning board will be oriented by that audit results and will be intimately involved in the audit process as well. That having been said, I thought of categorizing, just from personal discussion, the bullet points into several of these are enduring issues. Some of them are emerging issues. I would say that the recommendation that is most consonant with our goals has to do with sidewalks and crosswalks and public safety, which is one of the 3 goals that council has for the year. So that clearly is a priority for us, already identified. Tree canopy, we've fought many a battle. That's an enduring problem that I think needs to rise to the top of the planning board's agenda. I think despite our best efforts and our, I guess, idealistic hopes, we see trees vanishing at an alarming rate. I think the residents want something done. It's finding the something that's practical and legal that we need to search for, and I'm pleased that the planning board has identified that as a goal. Obviously, the Williamson track is a huge issue that's emerging. And another enduring issue is the so-called mega houses, and I think the issue there is the wording and whether the wording can be changed given North Carolina statute from must to may. So, and I don't know that council has that discretion, but we surely would want to embed that in our UDO if we could. And that may be illegal. That may be a question for council as well as the UDO auditor. And I'll stop there. So it was very timely. There's a lot of really interesting things that are identified here, but if we have to pick the most important, I would pick the safety issue because that's one of our goals. I would pick the canopy, tree canopy as an enduring one, and probably Williamson and mega houses as emerging issues. I have to correct myself, and probably mega houses is more enduring than emerging, but be that as it may. Those are my comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I saw a number of these that, well, let me start this way. The council has a number of retreat priorities that these touch on, and I think those are natural. They naturally cascade, if you will. If they're, how they're written actually map to what the work council has done for the retreats. So those are relatively easy ones because they're covered. And then there's some outliers, the things like the limiting the hotels, restricting gambling, no drive-through beer and wine stores, those kinds of things. Those are outliers that we've really not discussed other than notionally as not wanting that in a small cottage-style, family-oriented environment, at least not on the island itself. Tree canopy protection, we've talked about that many times, finding the most effective way to do that. Speed limit reductions, I would add yacht drive to the speed limit reductions. I think that's can be
Tried that.
a
We
place
did that.
somebody's really going to get hurt there, and maybe that's a greenway that we get the people that get off the street. There might be other things. I'm not suggesting that I know the answers. I just know that it's
I
a
live
problem.
on Yacht Drive and I sit on that front porch an awful lot, and it's not the speeding that's the issue.
Okay, all right. Well, the chief.
But for discussion, we've got plenty to.
Yes, we do. And I defer to you, certainly. Golf carts is a constant issue. The one at the bottom I thought was particularly interesting, the affordable housing. I know this failed miserably in the 2019 election as a campaign agenda because it was never really appropriately qualified. I just want to share the key points extracted from a session that I attended at the North Carolina League of Municipalities City Vision meeting last week that I told you I would be attending. There was an excellent session from a number of municipalities who, in effect, talked about their programs, what they thought worked, what they thought would work potentially elsewhere, making recommendations for effective practices. But they thought that there were some key components that had to be there. One is the political will of the municipal the municipality through its governing structure. There needs to be private-public partnerships, or at least strong relationships with businesses that would support it. They talked about rental prices and income-based rentals so that people are not priced out of the market quite so quickly. And even caps for rental increases so you don't sign a contract and then you learn in 11 months that your rental is going up 69% in one calendar year. So this is a national problem. It's not a problem that's just ours. But I just wanted to say that if at some point in the future, I really don't see where we have the room in the agenda of this next fiscal year to tackle it, there are resources that would help us maybe create a framework. And what I think about as being, when I talk about the affordable housing, I immediately go to our workforce, which have to live elsewhere as much as an hour away to then come work here. And perhaps, since none of our towns are very large, there might be an opportunity to work together on a project that would provide at least seasonal housing or full-time housing for our police officers and fire safety officers. Just something to tuck away is all I wanted to, only point I wanted to make.
What I have to say on everything is we have a UDO audit pending. And until all of that hard work gets done, we don't really know where we stand on a lot of these issues. But I do want to point out that I hope we keep a friendly working environment for our people. If someone wants to open up a business that I think may not be profitable, they have every right to roll their dice and try to open up a hamburger restaurant or a jewelry store, and we need to not put up roadblocks. We need to try to help people fulfill their dreams. But I'm just waiting for the UDO audit to come back, see where we are on that.
Any other comments from council?
I have one. Since you've mentioned my passion in here, trees, I would like to remind everybody it's called Oak Island, not Palm Island. So I would encourage you to encourage the replanting when you do it of natural trees as opposed to something else.
I have a nice little net at my house that I'd like for you to come and use. The squigglies are out.
What I might encourage council to do is, this is a discussion, there are no required action items, but there are some interesting items that we have talked about many times and that might provide some contours for the UDO audit. And if we can find some agreement around that, it might help move the audit along about in terms of direction that we may want it to go. So I just offer that as a suggestion to accelerate the UDO audit process. I am not wed to that at all. It was just a suggestion. Does council have any actions they want to?
Per the agenda, Madam Mayor, if individual council members have additional things that they would like to suggest for the planning board to consider, they're requested to send them to Mr. Kelly so he can compile them, and we'll move on. This has no action entailed, but it's merely a discussion.
Thank you very much. Consideration of the contract for the sea oats planting. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, ma'am. We put this on the agenda to sort of get some public information out as well. Back in November, we awarded a contract for $253,000 for the planting. What we were planting is, excuse me, we were planting sea oats. That'll be 100% of the plantings. This year, they'll be 20 to 24 inches tall. The plant depths are 10 to 12 inches, so we'll have a little bit bigger plant sticking out of the sand this time than we had last time. We're on 24 by 24 inch spacing, so 2 foot by 2 foot, you'll have a plant. That's a little more plants than what we had last time. It was roughly 3 foot by 3 foot. 90-day inspection after everything is finished. If there's 80% of it within those areas, everything's good. If it's less than 80%, they have 30 days to come back and replant those areas. So everything is laid out and measured out. The plants shall be planted at the seaward crest or at the top of the dune facing the ocean, and then back toward the landward tie-in or the toe of the dune. We are looking at planting the front part of the dune. We talked to CAMA and the Corps. They would like for us to wait until after this season for the turtles to be able to plant those. So they said we could start in November. November, as you know, is not going to be the optimal time to be planting sea oats. So it looks like we will be planting those next spring on the front of the dune, and we won't plant it all the way to the toe. It's roughly probably about 6 feet from the toe is where the dune or the vegetation will stop during the planting in the spring. We just wanted to bring this forward to you so we could let the public know that it's going to be in about 3 weeks. They should be starting to set up the second week, bringing their equipment in, start bringing the sea oats in, and then they will take off from that, and it takes them 4 to 5 weeks to be able to plant everything.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
We just need a motion to approve the contract.
If I can ask Mr. Eads one question. Counselor, the execution date is about a month after the contract date. Will we have to add an additional month on the back end, or are we going to be okay?
No, I can answer that one.
Okay.
I know it's a legal question. We asked the engineer this question as well, and we asked the provider. He was still bound by the dates that we had in here for the plantings, so that is still the good date for that. Sorry, Mark.
What he said.
Thank you both.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have one question. I'm not quite sure I understand the reasoning behind the delay in the plantings. If we're stopping 6 feet short anyway on the front side, turtles have been doing their thing for 1,000 years. How is a planting vegetation going to disrupt the turtle season this year? I just don't understand for the delay. I'd much rather move forward with the plantings. The vegetation has to get on the dune and take hold in order to secure what has been built. We've been told that time and time again.
We agree wholeheartedly with you, except the powers to be of the people who hold our permit do not agree with us. So they are the ones who have requested for us not to plant the sea oats. Individuals would like to plant the frontal dune. They are more than welcome to go ahead and plant. It is the town project that was part of a permit which does expire when this project is over, because we have looked at it as many ways as we can look at it to see what we can do. The monies for the sea oats is part of the town's contribution, not the FEMA money. We have tried to separate this. We have our own contract. We have done everything that we can do to try to be able to plant the sea oats, except just doing it without their permission. And I don't know if that is the way we need to go. But if a citizen wants to plant the front of the dune, they're more than welcome to go ahead and plant the front of the dune.
I appreciate that update. And my fellow citizens who love to volunteer.
Well done, Mr. Kelly. So the way I read this, we're getting better plants, as in more mature, greater density for the same cost, correct?
Yes, sir.
And hopefully, the survival rate this time around will be better than 80% as opposed to the last time where it was less than 80, right?
Yes. I believe the contractor and everything that we're using this time, and that's another reason why we broke it out individually in a town contract, was to get able to provide a little more money toward the project and to be able to go a little bit further and get the mature plants.
Right. Madam Mayor, I'll move that we approve the contract as presented by town management.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
Yes, ma'am.
Consideration of a development agreement for the Williamson track. Mr. Eads, is that you?
Yes, ma'am, it can be. If you recall, Madam Mayor and Council, at the March 9th council meeting, in connection with a rezoning, there were some discussions with the developer regarding a development agreement being entered into within 90 days of March 9th. To include, there was actually 12 items or 11 items listed on the document that was signed by the property owner and the developer, but of those 11, there were only 9 conditions. Mr. Kelly circulated initial draft of that development agreement this past Friday to council. Mr. McLeod caught a few items that I've since updated. They did not affect essentially the 9 conditions. You have those. You should have, all of you should have received those on Friday. If there are any additional items that we would like to discuss with the developer, we would need to do so within the next 30 days. So,
As part of this document,
to be included in the development agreement, yes,
in
ma'am.
the development agreement, okay.
Yes, Madam Mayor, from staff, we would like to set up a workshop with maybe 2 members of the council and the developer to be able to start talking about the final document that we need to present and look at. I believe we need to take what we have currently and start working with our council and their council and start negotiating and discussing the items that we would still like to add or look at and see what, excuse me again, what they have that they would like to come back with us and look at as well. But I think we need to do that prior to the 90 days and set up a scheduled meeting, maybe the week of the 23rd, and whatever council members would like to be present for that.
Well, I'll note for the record that a number of my colleagues, as well as myself, have given Mr. Eads, through Mr. Kelly, additional things for consideration. And so there is more work to be done, and I would applaud the effort to put the principals in the room to discuss how we move to a final document. And without that, the developer is in a bind from my perspective. So he has a 2009 agreement he doesn't like, doesn't want. I think we need to negotiate in good faith, and hopefully this will be cooperative and collaborative, but there are still other things out there, which I think we're probably going to talk about in the exec session, so I'll just stop there.
If I may, Mayor. Councilmember Bach, you're absolutely correct. Those additional thoughts have been conveyed to me by Mr. Kelly, but I felt the original draft should just have the conditions that were actually agreed upon and voted upon by council. If it's a consensus as we negotiate going further of the council, we will certainly include those. One other thing I wanted to mention regarding the 90 days, there is a public hearing notice requirement associated with this. So the 90 days, as I envisioned it when we talked about it, was we had an agreement in principle with the developer. Then we go forward with Madam Clerk with advertisement, set the public hearing, and take the formal vote, which likely will not happen within those first 90 days. But the agreement in principle will be in place. Does anybody have any questions about that?
If I may ask, Counselor, once the developmental agreement is agreed to, is that our one moment to get our amenities and our concessions, or is there another opportunity?
Well, the development agreement would be in place for a period of years. There's always an opportunity to attempt to renegotiate. However, there are certain benchmarks, as you may have seen, if they're not met going forward, then we would have the option to terminate the development agreement or modify it.
But our language that we want concerning 8 acres set aside or different situations such as that need to be in this upcoming contract.
Yes, sir. And let me rephrase that. The developer has agreed to give us 8 acres. We're not exacting land from anybody. They have volunteered that as a carrot for the town to consider. So
and we're going to allow them to voluntarily sign their name to it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But to your point, that's what we would be working through these terms before we get an agreement that we would advertise a public hearing on.
Okay. So, yeah.
So, just to follow up on my colleagues, my friend's comment, practically and strategically, the maximum leverage is at the front end of this. Once you go down the road and they acquire rights, you have less, you may have opportunity, but you have less likelihood of getting what you need. So from where I'm sitting, this is the moment.
It is on certain things, but they still, as we stated in one of these 11 conditions, they still have to meet the UDO requirements for future development approvals. We're just saying these are the parameters you can operate within, but you still have to follow the rules at each phase.
Yeah, understood. But in terms of things they're willing to do for the citizens.
Yes, sir.
Above and beyond, this is the moment. Down the road, less so.
I will say
that's just
that
the way of the world.
in addition to the 8-acre benefit, I mean, I think the built-out tax base conservatively is going to be 2.5 billion with a B. If it's built as we've outlined thus far, and with whatever additional conditions we want to negotiate, it'll be a planned development, adding significantly to the town's tax base, as well as at least 8 acres of public amenities. So it's not, the towns would be receiving significant benefits, in my opinion.
As with the developers.
Yeah, well, I'm saying it's not, of course they would be. It's not lopsided is what I'm saying. We have an opportunity here to protect the existing tax base as well. That's what I have at this moment, Madam Mayor and Council.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So is there action at this time, or, okay.
Did you want to set a workshop?
It's up to them. If they want to wait until after the 90 days or before, it's totally up to council.
I'd say the sooner,
Sooner the better.
because they've agreed to 90 days too, so I'd like to have it before the 90 days.
And I'm sorry, did you say you wanted the full council to have a workshop, or are you just going to have a couple of council members meet with them?
That's their choice.
Okay, because that week you mentioned is my Arkansas trip.
To speed it along, we could have a less than a quorum workshop, and then that way we don't have to juggle everyone's schedules, but
Sorry, Mr. Eads, what did you just say?
to speed up the process, we're calling it a workshop, but if it's less than a quorum, it'll be essentially a meeting.
Okay.
An informal meeting that doesn't implicate the open meeting laws.
Well, let's do this in 2 jumps. So we'll vote on whether council prefers everyone to work on it in the form of a workshop or a subset of individuals to work on it in a meeting format.
You don't need a formal vote. You can
Just say.
get a consensus. But if you do want to have a quorum formal workshop meeting, then it
has
will
to be.
require a motion and a vote. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying. Do we need consensus on which way you'd like to?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm comfortable with the informality of the design. I think we're more likely to get substantive discussions going than having a large group of people in a formal setting. So if that expedites this, Counselor, that's fine, and the mayor or council can pick who that is. It doesn't have to be any particular person. It can be a volunteer. Those discussions bring the principals together. That's the key. And I assume your counterpart would be there, right, Council?
Yes, sir. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I've not
And
spoken with him.
the developers' representatives, probably the partners, and 2 of us, and town management, and that's already a group of 8 or 9. Right?
Those 2.
Yeah, that's,
I agree with that
Me too.
premise. And
Because I think all of us are basically wanting to look
in
after the
agreement with what-
town, right?
what the others come
And
up
we've
with.
met with them many times in the 2x2x2, and I think we all know, so I'm good with that.
And if by chance, the same people that showed up the first Tuesday, one can't be there the second Tuesday, we have 5 people, somebody can We can have 2 people there for our meetings.
All right, so it's the meeting with twos? Okay,
Yeah,
so
a
we've got 3 votes for that?
non-quorum.
Non-quorum.
Non-quorum. Charlie,
Non-quorum.
Mark, non-quorum. All right, so,
But Mr. Kelly, I'm a volunteer him to. We'll set up the date and work
Yes.
with whoever wants to be there, and we'll make sure we don't have a quorum. Disseminate everything in real time after those meetings. Go from there.
Then get our final thoughts to you, and you can run with it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
very good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Next item of business. The new business,
Can we,
7:30. Is it time for a break?
see the
I'm
clock?
reminded.
I'm reminding
Time for a
you.
5-minute break. Please. We'll bring the meeting back to order and start with new business. First in the agenda of new business is consideration of the preliminary plat for a major subdivision referred to as the Orchard, at OKI.
Yes, ma'am. Steve, would you like to go ahead with this?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. The agenda item before you is consideration of the preliminary plat for a major subdivision. This parcel lies between Southeast 66th Street and Southeast 67th Street and parallels along East Oak Island Drive. This is zoned R6. Its purpose is for single-family residence dwelling. The procedure here is administrative, meaning that there are standards already set within the UDO for subdivisions, lot sizes, area, other standards, basically black and white. The staff did hold a TRC meeting. It's actually an email broadcast that we send out to all the agencies that would have effect with the development, including the school board, Department of Transportation, the Sunny Point Terminal, and other county, state jurisdiction that would this apply to. Most of it came back as not in their jurisdiction, not, no comments. The town was the only responsive party. Within this development, they have to put a utility easement for the water and sewer lines to run to service these properties. So the town public utilities wanted to ensure that these easements remained open and free of any obstructions for unfeathered access. And the developer has agreed to that and has placed this easement on the site plan and noted that is to remain open. And they are going to also make that part of the restricted covenants. The process is very simple for town. The administrative procedures that the town has outlined for these subdivisions is that the TRC meeting's held. We go to the planning board. We review the preliminary plat with the planning board. The planning board then makes a recommendation to the council to approve or deny the subdivision. During the review process, there was a couple little things noted, and the developer has already corrected those. One was the tree count. The language was correct, 2 trees for every 1,450, but he had a schedule over there that had only 1 tree on there for 1,450, and the schedule's been corrected. The other was the the density unit dwellings per acre. It was in a percentage format, and for easier understanding, we wanted a dwelling unit per acre format, and they changed that as well. The developer is also, he's environmental conscious, and he's proposed to stay underneath the 25% build-upon area. So he's looking to reduce the build-upon area on these sites. And the town of Oki's current ordinance allows up to 45% build-upon area. He's staying under 25%. He's agreed to install pervious materials within the town apron right away for the apron, the approach to get to the properties. And he's, and actually the applicant's here tonight too, if you have any questions for him. But it's, like I said, it's basically a straightforward subdivision. He meets all the lot dimensions, lot areas, standard size, lot sizes, and that's the presentation for you.
Is parking any different for these units than,
The parking is based off of the building permit application. It's the same as it would be any permit that's turned in. We review it based off of the habitable rooms.
excellent, thank you.
So what I hear you saying is it's a done deal.
Our UDO sets out these standards. The administrative process can actually be done by staff, and it's sometimes recommended that these processes be done by staff because the standards have already been set in place. Oak Island's a little more proactive and wanting to be involved in what's going on, and this way the council is aware of it and they're not, caught off guard when this 9-lot subdivision comes into place, or a subdivision. But it could, administrative can be done by staff, or it can be done by any governing body, but it still has to follow the same guidelines as you would administrative review.
And it's been approved by the planning board or recommended?
It was recommended unanimously approval by the planning board.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any discussion?
Well, I have a question for council. So, the plat per se, as past planning boards, is being recommended to us as conforming totally. But I heard a number of residents express concern about the marketing literature of the developer, which would appear to be inconsistent with the intention of the plat. Does that have any bearing on our decision? Can that be taken into consideration?
Marketing in the sense that they're going to do short-term type rentals?
Yeah, that was the case
Right.
that was made, correct.
My answer is, unfortunately, no, it should not be taken in consideration. And in fact, in early April, there was a case, you may have read it in the paper, the Court of Appeals ruled against the city of Wilmington for regulating short-term rentals differently than they do single-family residential homes. And it's also my understanding that's going to cost Wilmington, or the article I read, it's in the newspaper, I don't know if it's true or not, roughly $500,000. And I'll defer to Wes and Steve. Do you concur?
Yeah, you can't regulate use for short-term rental. Our ordinance doesn't have it. In that case that Mr. Eves spoke about, there are ways that municipalities can use to help regulate these uses, and basically what Wilmington did was just incorrect. And Wes probably knows more about their plans for future. That's not what you want?
Well, I was just going to say that General Assembly is making it clear that they're wresting away local control of short-term rentals, and they are to be treated as single-family or as residential units. I think that case stands for the proposition that it's a hands-off for local units of government, because all they were doing was making them register and things of that nature, and the case was pretty pro short-term rental. But to answer Councilmember Bach's question, I do not believe the fact that they're marketing it as short-term rental has any bearing on this plat's approval.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, that's just the way the General Assembly's going. They're taking all local control and regulation of short-term rentals away from local units of government. Wes, do you want to comment on that? I know the COG files it all the time.
No, I was just going to comment on the item you did. Regarding this particular plat, this is for the division of land, not necessarily the use. And so the application before you for the subdivision is unfortunately just for the division of land. If it meets the subdivision criteria, the usage would be a separate factor after, in fact, the land was divided and platted and someone came up for a zoning permit. If the town had regulations in place for STRs or vacation rentals, that would be then the time that use could be regulated and permitted or prohibited.
I understand the distinction, but it would seem that based on our current state of knowledge, that it's probably not going to be possible to develop local regulations which are going to pass muster.
It's going to be extremely difficult. As Mr. E says, our state legislators are leaning more toward, property rights and people being able to utilize their homes. State building code recognizes these short-term rental vacations home as residential units and not transient lodging.
Yeah, I understand that. And probably everyone up here on council has rental units around them. I mean, that's just a fact of life on this island. I know it is on 38th Street. It evidently can't be regulated and can't be constrained, which in a sense, I guess, can be frustrating, but that is the law. We're going to abide by it, and that's what I hear you saying, Council.
And it's very frustrating, not necessarily this particular, again, to Wes's point, this is a subdivision of land, not the nature of the use yet. No permits have been?
No.
Okay.
Sir.
But on the commercial code has, for instance, sprinkling of, you have a 20-room house is different than a 3-bedroom, single-family residential house. Ray Charles can see that. But we are kind of handcuffed at this point on what we can do at the local level. But that's a discussion for down the road.
Fair enough. Thank you for.
I just have one quick question for you, Steve. I notice all these walkways behind these houses. Are they going across wetlands?
Oh, you talking about that aerial?
Yeah.
I don't have that picture.
Yeah.
It was submitted earlier, but I am familiar with that. Yeah, those are private walkways that go across the pond. Everybody in that Turtle Creek that fronts that ocean front has access across that pond. It's part of their property.
That's my next question. It's part of their property, so they can build
that they can build access across it. I'm actually currently reviewing one now for a house in that area.
And to address the access or walkway for Southeast 66, some of the council has talked to us about that. As you know, we're going through the budget cycle right now, and we're looking at crossovers and stuff on the west end and trying to find funds for those and look at something next year for that. So I don't see where council right this moment is looking to put an access or a walkover or a crossover on Southeast 66th Street. We're looking at the next one for us on the south or on the west end at, I believe, at 6th Street. So there's no funds or anything appropriated in this year's budget for an access for Southeast 66. And the development actually goes between 66th and 67th. And 67th does have an access point that this property could utilize besides building a crossover across that on 66.
If I can ask you, Mr. Edwards, there was some talk tonight about the integrity of the pond, keeping that integrity and all the efforts that have taken place on that. Would this be owned by the Orchard OKI group or?
No, sir. As I said earlier, all the properties in that Turtle Creek subdivision that has the beachfront access, that is deeded land across that pond to each one of them. That pond is a private pond, and they have the right to develop the walkways, and they can maintain it as they see fit.
They being
the property owner that has access, that owns across that pond.
Now, are they impacted by CAMA at all?
This project, no, ma'am.
So theoretically, they could just, if they wanted to, they could just drain the pond and no longer have one.
There might be some regulations that would have to be involved to get it to drain it. Definitely to fill it would be an issue.
Well, and just as a reassurance, the town owns Southeast 66 all the way down. So any of those property owners can't just start developing that strip of land across the pond to the beach. That's owned by the town, so we'll have to make that decision. And you just heard Mr. Kelly say, there's no plans in our budget anytime soon to develop that strip of land. So, but we do own that, so no one can develop that.
That's correct.
Does council have a motion?
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Edwards, this proposed development will it affect the current land value of the current owners?
I'm not a market expert, but you build nice homes in a nice area, property values maintain or go up.
Rental properties in a nice area, it could go down. That affected it at all?
Not in this environment, I'd say rental properties actually bring value to the property. I told you I'm not a market expert, but.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
I have to say yes.
3, 4, 5. Against, okay. 4 to 1 against.
What was that vote?
It was 4 to 1.
4 to 1.
Vote to approve.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Next on, is the Southeast 66 preliminary plan. That's just an attached document. It's not a separate consideration.
No, you've taken the action that needed to be done.
So discussion of the police plan for beach services. Chief Morris.
Yes, ma'am. We have our chief here tonight.
Sometimes. Excited.
Sorry, chief.
I didn't mean to make everybody leave here tonight. Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, community members. We have had many discussions, evaluations, and maybe a couple arm wrestling matches over in the police department over this beach services unit that we have formed and put together and put it into place. So tonight, I would like to unveil that and discuss things and answer questions about our new initiative with the police department and with the town. So our purpose, when we sat down, we crafted our purpose. The unit was created to preserve and maintain the public beach areas within the town of Oak Island limits. And for our service, the unit will serve residents and visitors through the monitoring of public beach areas, public beach access locations, and parking areas along the streets within the beach vicinity. So for our objectives, we've got 10 miles of public beach areas that we are going to patrol. Our second objective is to prevent damage to the dune system through staff and officer presence and ordinance enforcement. Number 3 is patrol beach access locations and area streets for parking violations. And with this initiative, we're going to utilize the drone to spot violators and also address safety concerns. And another aspect is we're going to ensure that there is fair and consistent enforcement over the town ordinances when it comes to beach and parking. And then with our staff members, we're going to ensure that they are providing quality public service and assistance to the public during this season. So those are our objectives. So the personnel makeup is we have 13 civilian staff members. We recently hired those with HR. We brought each one in for an interview. I think we had maybe 20 or 21 that we had to look at, and we hired 13. We had a few folks back out on us. We had a couple that, did not want the enforcement aspect, of this job. And this is a big part of this job is in enforcement, whether it be parking or whether it be on the beach. So we had to make sure that we had the right fit and the right personality moving forward. So the UTV Beach Patrol, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So we're going to have designated people on the beach utilizing a UTV. That's very similar to an ATV. And our parking enforcement. And then the town, we have one drone pilot that's going to be working in conjunction, with the Beach Patrol and with parking. And we're going to integrate the police officers in with this plan. So it's really a four-tier approach to protect our beaches this year, with the police department and the town. So on the beach, each day from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., starting on Friday and running through Labor Day, we're going to have 2 UTVs, 2 staff members that are patrolling the beach 7 days a week. And they are going to be enforcing violations, educating people, and providing assistance day in and day out through the season. On the street, we're going to have our parking enforcement. That's going to happen from Thursday to Sunday, so 4 days per week. We're going to have one parking personnel that's actively out searching for violators, ticketing cars. So Thursday through Sunday. On the holiday weekends, we're going to have two people enforcing parking violations, along with the police. So the police is going to work in conjunction with the parking, and then also the drone. We're going to really utilize the drone this year. In this initiative, we can use him most days. However, he is committed from Friday to Sunday, which is the peak days throughout the season. And with the utilization of that drone, if he puts his drone up on 49th Street, he can go 4/10 of a mile east or west with the drone and cover a lot of area, with the drone. And then he's working in conjunction with the Beach Patrol. So they are actually working together. The drone is going to have a public service announcement attached to it. So if the drone flies over a violator that's on the dune, the drone operator can actually speak to, the violator and educate them to get off the dunes. So that's going to be employed as well. So we've got that 3-tier approach. This is the UTV that our beach services unit will be utilizing over the next 2 weeks. We have rented this UTV all season for 115 days for our beach services. Now, our police department, we have already 2 UTVs, so we'll have a total of 4. This one here, we're going to have on a temporary basis. We've got it for roughly 2 weeks, and then they're going to bring Sunbelt, with who we rented it from. They're going to bring us a 2-seater. The 4-seaters are a little cumbersome to operate, so we're going to get something just a little smaller. This one here is actually a diesel, and we wanted gas, but leading into this initiative, we got what we could get, and so there's where we're at. But we have it. We have it at the police department, ready to go now. So today was actually our first day that we trained personnel. We had 6 folks that come through the training, and we trained from when you show up at 10 o'clock, where do you go in the police department, what documents you gather, what briefings you get your assignment, who your supervisor is, where you're going on beach, whether it's the Beach Patrol, east or west side, whether you're going to be assigned to parking. You'll come in and get your assignments, and you'll know exactly where to go once you get there. And then at 6 o'clock, the folks are going to come in, and then we'll talk about some paperwork that they fill out. So they went through the training today, not only on the enforcement side of town ordinances, how to issue a citation, how to drive the UTV. The officers took the services personnel down to the beach, and we spent some time on the beach today. And of course, we identified some violations on the beach, and the folks actually got to see how the police dealt with folks and how they talked to them. And, you know, because this is a discretion-based job. I mean, there's some discretion that goes in here, you know, with a decision, whether you write a ticket or you educate and you move on. So they got to see how the police interact with folks. So I thought that was very beneficial for them. We got some, you know, good feedback on that. So tomorrow will be our second phase of our training day, and then the initiative starts on Friday. So we're 2 days training, and we should have everyone trained going into Friday. And like I said, the hours are from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week for the beach patrol. And the UTV's East and West is what their assignments are going to be. And we discussed the parking Thursday through Sunday. One staff member assigned, and on the holidays, we've got 2 staff members. The drone Friday through Sunday, and holidays and as needed, we will be able to utilize the drone. And then the patrol officers. So as staffing allows, we're during the week, when staffing allows, we're going to have police officers on the beach. On the weekends, we're going to have police officers on the beach. And on holidays, we're going to have 2 police officers out there. That's a requirement. But, you know, we're trying to figure out our schedule with the police officers because we've got some staffing shortages right now and some other things that are going on. So we're going to plug the officers in with this initiative as much as we possibly can. So a few key points, or just some discussion points, if you will. Our beach services unit do not carry firearms, and they do not conduct police tasks. They do not make arrests. We have instructed them that there's no violation on the beach worth getting injured over. So if something does become hostile, radio the police, and then we can come. A police officer will respond and address the issue. Our services unit will be dressed in uniforms. They will have a hat that all match. They will have a Carolina blue shirt that has the town logo on the front. On the back of it, it will clearly be identified as beach services. They'll all be wearing khaki color shorts. So our beach services unit will be uniform and standardized when they're on the beach patrolling, and also parking enforcement. Our communication aspect, each member will have a radio or walkie-talkie so they can communicate back and forth with each other. The beach services unit can talk to the drone, and the drone can talk to the parking. And also the police officers that are patrolling the street will have the ability to communicate with our beach services unit. So we've got that worked out. The guys that are in the patrol cars can communicate back and forth with our beach services unit. Our daily activity logs, I think it's important that we capture the statistics, you know, through this initiative, so we can report, you know, how many dune citations that we issue, how many parking tickets is issued, how many citizen contacts that we have. So we're going to do our due diligence on capturing those statistics, so we can come and report what this unit is doing on a monthly basis, or whenever it's requested. I'll be able to provide those numbers. Our supervision over the unit is our patrol lieutenant has complete oversight over the unit. However, on the shifts, the shift supervisor who is on patrol will be the on-shift supervisor. So we will have constant supervision. There's several layers of supervision or leadership that's laid into play, that's in place to address any issues that someone has. Police and parking enforcement. We are, not only is the beach services unit going to enforce parking issues, the police is going to enforce the parking issues as well. But however, let me just make a couple comments about that, about the police and the parking. We answer calls, and on average, there is about 20 calls per 24-hour rotation that happens. So if you see a police car and he or she drives by a violation, it may not be intentional. It may be they can't stop. So just keep in mind that, let's keep an open mind about that. However, our staff has been instructed to, if you see a parking violation, we're going to issue it, we're going to enforce that violation. So, and the last thing that I'll say on our key points is we started this initiative 2 weeks before Memorial Day weekend. We understand it's going to kick off Memorial Day, so that's going to give us that 2-week window to work any kinks out, because the best laid plans always have some issues. So we've got 2 weeks to work this out and to see how things are going, and we are remaining open-minded, with this plan, where we can address, if we see that we're weak in one point, then we'll address that. We'll make some modifications, and I'm positive that we're going to be successful this year with it. I'm positive about that. So we've got the right mindset, we've got the right attitude, we've got a very good plan laid in effect. We have sit down over the past 2 weeks, and we've got a very comprehensive operational plan that outlines every aspect of what I discussed here tonight. That's available, if anyone wants to read that. So I think we've got a good start. We had a good start today. We had a good training day, and I'm looking forward to moving forward over the weeks and to see what our unit can do.
Thank you, Chief, for the time and effort you and your staff have put into this. It seems very well integrated and thoughtful. My one question that I have is that our visitors who live in another state, Ohio, Wisconsin, wherever they might come from, it's really easy for them to blow the ticket off.
Correct.
So have you given any thought to processes by when they come back, looking forward to a wonderful vacation the next year, perhaps being booted or somehow having to pay their penalty that is overdue?
We have had some discussions over that. That's a very difficult situation when, first of all, if you've got somebody from out of town, do they give you the correct name? Do they give you the correct address? Do you have the right person if you're out on the beach? However, once that ticket is issued, it never goes away here in town. We have a record of that. So if it's much easier for us to deal with someone who is a resident of North Carolina,
right,
than it is from someone from out of state. Luckily, from my experience so far, most people are paying their citations. It seems that way. I don't have the numbers, but the discussions that I have, folks are paying citations, and so we're successful on that part. But I'm not real sure how to address somebody that lives in California that gets a $50 civil parking violation that does not get recorded into DMV. It's almost impossible for us to, as it stands right now, to track that.
Agree.
Chief, congratulations. It's an elegant design, but as you say, all designs have flaws. So I'm confident that you're going to be able to fine-tune this and make this work. And I want to thank you for the effort that you put into this. I have a question for council, but I want you to hear the answer. Because we left this point last year and it was ambiguous. Malicious violators, and I'm using that word pointedly, people in rentals tunneling through dunes, creating serious hazard to life, limb. We find them with the drone, or we identify them. Who can we prosecute, if anyone, for that? Because the renter is there, right? The rental agent presumably is maintaining the property or observing it, and the owner is in Ohio. Now what?
Well, the easy answer is obviously the actual individual or individuals that are digging into the dune.
But short of catching someone digging red-handed, you've got a rental unit with a 6x4 10-foot tunnel. Now what?
I would think, and that's probably something more appropriate to discuss as a legal strategy in legal session, but I would think
okay,
the more if you have a repeat offender at a certain property, I would think we would have a graduated process. Dear management company and property owner, this has occurred at your property. You know, please advise your tenants to cease and desist, or to stay off the dunes. Then a second warning, and then after perhaps a second warning, we start finding the actual property owner.
Okay.
And then that property owner can work it out with its property management company, however they see fit.
Okay, so I'm hearing you saying it would necessarily, unless caught red-handed, shovel in hand, so to speak, it would be a graduated process whereby this continues to reoccur at a given property.
Right, North Carolina generally, unless it's like a hazard activity like dynamiting or something like that, is not a strict liability state. So I would think the first step would be to put the property owner, assuming it's not the owner doing the digging, it's a tenant, on notice of this problem. And the more notice you give them, the more repeat offender, the more likely you can fine the actual property owner for that activity. But you can't do it out the gates the first one. I wouldn't advise to try to do it first or second time.
Unless I misunderstood them, I believe there's already ordinances in place for that to happen.
I haven't looked at it recently. I'm just trying to answer Councilmember Bob's
Thank you.
question.
No, I appreciated that answer, because last year we were frustrated identifying these damaging tunnels, but not being able to assign responsibility to anyone.
I don't want to put the chief on the spot too, but I mean, if someone contested it, we would have to prove it, whether it be a criminal beyond a reasonable doubt standard or a more probable than not standard in civil court. We can't even identify who did it. That's a evidentiary hurdle, to say the least. But we can look at a graduated notice type thing. And if you have one particular property that's had 10 and the vast majority has 0 or 1, then I think we can safely say there's an issue there.
Thank you.
Chief, do you want to add?
I do want to follow up on just a couple things, Councilman Bach, so when the beach services personnel issue a dune citation, we are going to capture the location and the nearest street for that. So at the end of the week, end of the 2 weeks, we can evaluate, do we have more dune violations on the west end or east end, and start isolating, those complaints, per se. Second of all, when we talk about complaints, is we're going to try real hard to identify the number of complaints that actually come into the police department that we investigate. So I can report to you guys, this is how many complaints that we are receiving. I know that we are at May 10th right now, May 10th, 9th, 10th. So we're somewhere around the 3 to 4 mark right now in May. So that's the number of actual complaints that we're receiving and dispatching a police officer to right now. But, moving forward with this initiative, I'll be able to more accurately report the numbers, to you guys, to council and to the community. Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
Another thing we're working on is a public campaign to, instead of posting it on Facebook and doing it that kind of way, the police don't sit there and monitor Facebook 24 hours a day to be able to see what's going on. If the person would notify, I know it's 911 or the non-emergency number, then we could get somebody out there quicker. Besides 2 hours later, somebody else sees it on Facebook and sends us a text, says, did y'all go to 9th Street? Well, we didn't know to go to 9th Street. And when we got there, they were gone. If they would just contact us first and then post if they would like, but if they would at least give us a heads up that something's out there instead of just assuming that we know or we're not going to go, or we rode by it, or those kind of things. Because as the chief said, there is other duties that they're doing at the same time. But the quicker we know, the quicker can we respond. And we are getting ready to get a little campaign out that Mike and the chief's been working on to get that out to the public to, let us know before you comment. Now, they got a slogan, but I'm not going to mess it up because I don't remember it. But it's just something that...
Comment. Call before you comment.
There you go. Call before you comment. But it is something that they're working on internally as well, so we can track those complaints, because I get calls from y'all, or I get a picture sent from y'all saying, did you see this on Facebook? I don't Facebook either. So I'm the last one that's going to see it. But those kind of things, if the chief of the police could get it early, and it's the same thing if you contact me and I contact him, and he's going to have to contact, I mean, it goes through a process. If we just went ahead and contact 911 directly, then we would dispatch the police to that. Just wanted to add that in there.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Thank you.
I'd like to say, Chief, this is probably the most proactive approach we've had. And I'm sure the people of Oak Island are going to be very receptive once they hear about this. They'll be happy to know that their dune investment is being looked after. Their parking decal investment is being protected. So I applaud you, and I wish you nothing but the best success.
Thank you for those comments, and I certainly am not going to stand up here and take credit for this. It has taken the team, you know, from Mr. Kelly down to myself, the staff, Mr. Emery. So it's been a team effort over the past couple weeks just to pull this together. Human resources, you know, to bring in, you know, almost 20 folks to interview. So it's a team effort, and I'm proud to stand here, you know, before you too.
And you haven't told us yet about your beach ambassadors too, so you've also got that out and about.
Yes, they do not fall under the purview of the police department. However, they are a wonderful asset, you know, for the town, and they are advocates, you know, for a safe and healthy beach environment. And the police department met with the beach ambassadors a couple weeks ago when they held their annual training and participated with them as well. So the beaches should be well covered, you know, over our season this go around.
We're visible. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Quick question. Since these are civil violations, are we educating, or do we have available a different phone number, like a dune hotline that goes directly to Oak Island PD, so we're not filling up 911 with, there's somebody on the dune? So, because they are civil violations, so 911 would be better served with more serious emergencies. Not saying that we don't want to capture the violators as it's occurring. Just curious, are we going to communicate perhaps another method of communication to reach out to?
We looked at those kind of things, and we looked at doing text. We are not equipped for the 24-hour, we don't have the weekend staff, so we'd have to bring in more people, start manning a phone in those kind of situations. And all the people that call in for the dogs and all these kind of things, it's, 911, we have taken some of the water and sewer calls off of them because we have a posted on-call number for those, but even us posting that, they still call 911 to tell them they have a water leak. So there is those kind of things that we did look at to try to figure out a way. We do have some emails and texts and stuff that we can send out notifying things, but we don't have a system yet where people can send in like the 311 or something like that, send in a pothole or something like that. We just don't have that.
And I'd like to expand on just a little bit about what Mr. Kelly said about utilizing the 911. I agree, you know, 911 is for emergency services. However, you know, the police department is not equipped to capture those telephone calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, our personnel work in the office from 8 o'clock to almost 5 o'clock, Monday through Saturday. The issue comes is, what if if we had a designated line in the police department, what if somebody called at 5:05 and they didn't get answered? That creates a host of problems. Another avenue that we looked at is giving the patrol officer a designated cell phone or a designated pager. I say pager, but you know, a device. So when a call come in, the problem with that is, or the issue with that is, what if they're on a domestic? What if they're working a wreck and it takes them 15 or 20 minutes to, oh, my telephone, you know, I've got a text message about a dune violation. So we tabled that extensively over the last 2 weeks, and we discussed it, and we attempted to figure out a way, you know, to do that with the available resources that we have. However, one thing that I'm not going to do is set the police department or the town up for failure. And because that may create some issues that we can't recover from. They never answer the phone. I can't get through to anybody. So it may just very well create more issues than we're ready for right now with the staffing with the resources that we have. So it's been well thought out, every angle, and I'm welcome to suggestions, with the resources that we have. I welcome that, but with what we have now, it would be almost impossible to ensure that those lines were addressed.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much. Thank you. Any more comments?
Nope. Thank you again, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You have our support.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next on the agenda is consideration of a contract with Stature Engineering. David, is this you?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm gonna stay out of the pollen here soon. So what we have in front of you tonight is, we went back, the rec department, or the rec center needs to have some work. We looked at that this past year in the budget. Council set aside $75,000 for this venture. We started looking at what needed to be repaired, the way to go about being the repairs, and then we went back and talked to our engineer who'd done the original evaluation and had him do another scope of work on what we can do to go forward, remodeling and then putting in a new structure on the backside of the rec center to add some additional services or different areas to provide whatever the town's needs were at that time. The contract that you have in front of you, $40,000, I believe, that gets you through the next steps that's identified on page 99 and 100. But it lays it out. EB has been working with us well on all the FEMA projects and everything else that we have. So he's available when we need him. He'll come talk to Heather or whatever's needed on those sides. And what we did is we started to look at a path going forward. Councilman Kraft had brought this up and wanted this to be an item, and y'all talked about it during the retreat. And we don't want this just to drop off once we award this and nothing get done.
Right.
So we started looking at some parameters, and I gave everybody a copy of today, just sort of an outline. We would award the contract, and we will start working with the Rec Advisory Board. They've already started talking about this as well. The possibility of appointing 2 council members to be liaisons between the Rec Advisory Board, not to form any extra committees or any kind of things like that, but for them to work and other council members to provide ideas and details going forward so we can share them and sort of have them sort of driving on that side of the needs of the citizens on what they would like for the rec department and for the rec center. In June, council appointees and staff to meet with the Park and Rec Advisory Board to discuss the concepts and lay out some tasks moving forward and try to come up with the final timeline so we can get this thing moving sort of parallel as we're working. Rec Department's already talked with Emmy Miller about the grant writing. Surveys, Heather sort of discussed those with the Rec Advisory Board. It all falls into timetables and things like that and how old the surveys are. I believe council needs to sort of come up with an idea of what they would like the rec center to be and what services they would like to offer and how they envision it looking and what they would like for it as a concept. And then that would sort of, instead of just sending out a survey saying, hey, what would you like? And we get 9,000 different views, we sort of streamline what we would ask them and then get their views on the situations that we take before them. And then July, Rec Board meeting will review the current information and then hopefully finalize the survey questionnaire and then set up some public meetings to get some initiative from the public as well going through this. And all these are just sort of generic things that I believe we need to go going forward. It is going to be sort of an aggressive schedule to meet some timelines and deadlines and those things like that if we want to have this finalized by December. I think it's doable, but it's not going to be 1 month that we can take off. We're going to need to make sure that we just follow the guidelines going forward and the community gets involved and we have time to hear what their needs are and what they believe as well. And then the Rec Board would do the survey in the time frame that Heather works it out with Emily to make sure we get the most points. We have to look at the point concept. Some points are more for this or not for this. So we'd have to look at all those kind of things. EB, the architect that EB has, he's a conceptual person. He would come in, council could give him some direction on what they want the building to look like or what they would like to see on the inside. And he would actually sit here and hand draw and draw it, and you would be able to say, let's look at this structure, what's it going to look like on the outside. We want a stage, we don't want a stage, we want this, we want that. And as you're discussing things, he could be drawing up several different alternatives for you to be looking at.
Right.
So it's more of a hands-on approach kind of concept as going forwards as we can have to try to speed this process along. And that's sort of where I dropped off at that point.
Mr. Kelly, thank you for the expedited timeline, because if the end goal, which I believe it is for the entirety of council, is to break ground next spring, we need to move. This is not a time for dilatory attack. This needs to be straightforward. My only concern is on page 99. I don't understand this proposal. So my understanding is the contract is for renovation and maintenance of the existing, and then the rest of it's essentially consulting fees to design the new. But look at, under scope of work, gymnasium addition, where did that come from?
That was just it's an open floor concept. Gymnasium, that's why I said if you wanted a stage or didn't want a stage, the divider walls, if you want to break it out into 4 rooms, 2 rooms, that was just what he put in there to give a generic description.
Okay.
It's not saying you're going to have a basketball court, you're going to have a volleyball court. It doesn't say that.
The phrase falls short of what I needed to hear there. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
For the $40,150 contract, they are agreeing to do $7,750 a bathroom renovation. And then the other $32,250 is consulting and permitting and going forward with whatever the survey says we need to have done.
Yes, sir.
So they'll do $7,000 worth of bathroom work, and then the next step is we need a survey.
Well, the bathroom work, that's why we sort of held off on this year on the $75,000. We don't want to do something that we know we're going to tear back out. The bathroom work, actually one of the bathrooms goes to one of the meeting rooms that you have currently. So if we went ahead with the renovation right now, the bathroom renovation, you would lose one of your rooms currently. And I don't know if that's the process. We need to lay that on the timetable to be able to do certain things so we don't sort of interfere with what Heather and them have going on for camps and those kind of things.
So in essence, the $40,000 contract now is just pretty much for advising fees.
It's moving everything forward. He'll have plans and specs for to do the bathroom. Everything will be finalized, so whenever we want to award that concept, it would be ready for us to start that part of the phase.
Sounds like he'll function as a force multiplier, that when decisions are made, he can either draw them and or bring the right people on board to get things started and just keep the momentum of the project moving forward. Is that a fair?
Yes, ma'am. He's the one who also did our pier.
Okay.
So he came out with the layout, then we started putting the benches, we started putting the lights.
Right.
So EB's been with us for probably 6-7 years now.
Yep.
But he's very upfront. He's an individual. You're not going through a corporation or anything like that, so he's easy to grab. The latest thing he's done for us is all the renovations at the pier house, the pilings and those kind of things, and also he turned in the piles and everything for the shade structures for the Friends of the Park. So we're getting ready to get those pilings driven to be able to put those wind sails up.
He does good work, and a force multiplier would help us move us along. So
He'll be
that,
our project manager on site, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
good job. Thank you for this accelerated scope of work.
And we'll work with Heather and the rec board. They would be the sort of the driving group for this. And then if you wanted to appoint some council members to sort of be the go-betweens for y'all, or however you want to proceed with that.
There's some interest in some want to think about it. So if we can get back to you.
That's fine.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I'll make the motion, Madam Mayor, with the clarification that we're not building a gymnasium. So I make a motion to approve the contract with Stature Engineering for $40,150 as presented with the gymnasium removed, and authorize the town manager to execute the contract.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Again, thank you, David. Consideration of amendment for committee charge. We took that off, didn't we? Gone.
Ma'am, that was the par 3 committee.
That's the par 3.
That was separate. We separated that out from the general
See,
committee.
you're right, I didn't get to the end. Thank you. Consideration of amendment to committee charge for the par 3 advisory board. This is on your page 103. Is Heather here? Does she want to speak to that?
She does. She's not the liaison to that committee.
Okay.
But I can speak to it if you want me
Please.
to. Okay. So we've had a time trying to keep this committee filled, even before the pandemic. So the consideration here is to, instead of having just 2 members from the South Harbor community and then 3 members from the rest of Oak Island, which would be the island and preserve, that area, just have it open to any Oak Island residents. And if they all be from South Harbor, so be it. If they're all from the island, fine. But that might help get some more members for the committee.
Thank you. Any discussion by council?
Well, this committee provides valuable insight and recommendations, and ideally, you would have a balance, but we have not experienced that recently. Rather than lose the committee, I'm willing to amend this to all interested residents, regardless of their locale. I would hope that as the mainland presumptively comes online, that we'd have a lot more people volunteering. But that's down the road, and our need is now. So,
Right.
yeah, I understand the need for the change.
And there seems to be, just as an observation, a lot of really positive motivation and energy around golf course activities that I haven't seen when I initially moved here. So kudos to the staff for all that they're doing.
We'll let them know.
Is there a motion?
Well, just one comment.
Go ahead, caveat.
While I'm not opposed to opening this committee up to just residents of the town of Oak Island so we can fill the committee, my only point would be we're changing this committee's charge without consideration of a broader discussion about opening up at-large positions on committees within our town. As we grow and we see a more connected opportunity with our neighbors, I'd like to have an opportunity to consider looking at-large positions that may, specifically recreation-type opportunities like the par 3 golf course. I see that being utilized by more than just residents of the town of Oak Island. So perhaps it's something that we'll come back and revisit in general when we look at committees and their charters, but
And we do
I'm
the
gonna
overhaul. I would agree.
continue to ask that we consider at-large seats on some of these.
Is this committee full now that we appointed a position today?
No, you now have 3 members out of 5.
So I think my good friend at the other end of the table raises an important question. I do think this committee needs help now, but the larger question is, are we going to move from the current standard, which is you need to be a resident, right, and vote and live here, to participate in any form of governance, to what you call at large? I think that's, no pun intended, a larger conversation that we need to have, because that changes everything. What I'll say is this: the conundrum, right, is how do you involve all of these property owners and part-time participants in our life. How do you connect them to the town, and how do you involve them? And I've been there, formerly as a property owner here for a couple of months, and then I don't have any input into decision-making. So I understand what you're suggesting. However, it would be groundbreaking, and I'd want to really think it through carefully before we go down that road. That's all.
I agree. There's pros and cons to that. And we have a lot of Oak Island residents that would like to be on boards, as opposed to somebody who lives in Raleigh and comes here 2 weeks a year, or 2 weeks a month. It's a slippery slope. It'll be a good discussion when we have it.
And it's remanded, the committee charges are remanded to July, so we'll put it on there.
Right.
Okay, so do we need a motion to change this?
We need a motion to accept as amended.
Go for it.
Would that be accurate, Lisa?
I'll make a motion to amend as presented the committee charge for the Par 3 Advisory Board.
Second.
All in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We're working down to the end. Consideration of Code of Ethics was taken off. Review of the charges of the town's admissions advisory boards and committees has been removed. So we move to consideration of renewal contract with Oak Island Water Rescue. David, who is going to take the lead on this?
I think Lisa's got a little bit of history on this she can give us.
Yes, sir. I've been working with Oak Island Water Rescue, and I'll speak to this and the next item kind of at the same time, if that's all right. They're separate contracts. One of them is for services, and one of them is for a lease for the land. So Oak Island Water Rescue had the building erected on the property, but the town retains ownership of the land and leases it to Water Rescue. The lease was a 15-year lease put in place many years ago and has expired, and so we need to renew that. The contract for services had also expired. I think probably just a combination of new personnel, storms, and everything else. So both of these contracts are presented to council tonight.
So which are we discussing first?
First is the contract for services.
Contract for services.
So I have several questions. This is the first time I've seen this contract, I guess because it was a longstanding.
I think the last time it was done was 2015,
Yeah, okay.
17, maybe. I can't remember offhand.
So
I thought this was the one that's done yearly.
no,
The last one was done for a few years. This one is just proposed for a year, just to, maybe if we do it yearly, we'll keep it on track.
Okay.
so I see we have water rescue here. So I'm trying to understand the protocol to be called out. That's question one. What is that? And two, what's the interface if we have multiple organizations responding to the same call, which we do, apparently happens all the time. So if you could answer those, that would be helpful.
We are training all our personnel to follow the incident command system. We understand when we are called, whoever there first, and usually the fire department's going to be there ahead of time, they're going to be a command of a situation. I think our biggest language is they're not going to be able to tell us, if I'm not there or a chief officer's not there, that, oh, you have to go do this, because they don't know how we operate and they don't know our assets. It has to go through us. We'll still be responsible, but we'll evaluate what they're requesting us to do and whether we can do it in a safe response. That's the biggest thing. If we're the first on the scene and it's strictly water rescue, then I will assume responsibility or I'll assume command until the situation changes or it becomes more of a police matter or more of a fire matter. Then the command situation changes as the situation changes. So it's all part of the incident command system.
I'm familiar with ICS. That answers the interface question, but I wanted that on the record. How are you dispatched? Like, it just says a call, but where's the call coming from?
We get it through CCOM, through the County Dispatch Center.
Okay.
We get it on active 911 on our phone and paged out. And then it all depends where the call is, whether I respond right to the scene or go to the station and make sure equipment is dispatched out. This summer, when we plan to have assets out more often, we'll be responding because we'll be out on the water or on the beach itself.
Okay, the language is just a little vague, so you're
Right.
dispatched.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the commitment to operating within ICS in any of the documents, in any of our agreements? Or is it just an internal protocol?
It's an internal. What we're trying to do, right now, they had nothing in even our old bylaws. We're recommending now, we rewrote our bylaws so that all our basics, we have to have at least 100 and 200. 300 and 400, you all know, is a lot more complex. That's
Right.
multiple days. Eventually, we might like to get to there, but right now, we want to make sure all the personnel are at least 100 and 200. And that's our goal. That's what we're striving for in this next year.
Excellent.
I have a question. It's probably more for Mr. Eads. Let's say an incident occurs, unfortunately, someone is injured, water rescue is involved. Does the town stand any chance of being held responsible?
Chance, yes. We have a indemnification agreement or indemnification clause and a additional insured clause in the contract. It would largely depend on incident command, who's giving the orders, and then the actual, in the unfortunate event someone's hurt or worse, there still has to be negligence proven, i.e. had you done A, B, and C, this wouldn't have happened. In that event, the court will analyze it on a case-by-case basis. If they're doing something that we direct them to do, then that would kick in our kind of security blanket of the indemnification and additional insured, but arguably someone could bring a direct action against the town.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Eads?
Yes, sir.
In paragraph 3, go back to what Councilman Bach was asking.
Can you give me a page number, sir?
Yes, sir.
131.
131.
Thank you.
Paragraph 3. The department shall render aid in the event of any water-related emergency if an alarm is sounded. The department shall respond and shall not be obligated to secure the permission of any town official. And that becomes ambiguous if there's another sentence added. I would like to see a sentence in there that when the police are also on site, or the fire department's also on site, where the chain of command is. So just saying they don't have to respond to the town officials is alarming.
Well, it actually says they don't have to wait till they secure the permission of the town official. In other words, they don't have to delay.
Shall not be obligated to secure the permission of any town official.
In other words, we don't have to wait till we hear from the PD or.
And that's fine. But nowhere does it say what happens when police, fire, and water rescue are all three saying, we ought to do this, no, we ought to do that, no, we ought to do this. Who gets to be the decision maker?
Well, I mean, generally, the first on scene would set up the incident commander, correct?
Correct. And then it depends.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but to the question asked earlier by Councilmember Blaylock, if you're first on scene and you're the incident commander, that further insulates us from liability.
Right.
I mean, the goal here is not lawyers and liability. The goal here is to get.
I just want to make sure that they don't trip over each other or get upset at each other.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had that issue?
Not to my knowledge, but I can see where it could happen.
Right.
For example, the fire was dispatched for the mud rescue, but we happened to hear it, and I was the first on scene. So technically, they were dispatched first. If they had been first, they could have been incident commander. But again, they can't tell me what to do with our assets because they don't know what our assets can do. So I have to be in control of the assets. That's what part of the unified command is. So it can get sticky, but if everybody understands how it works, And if you work with the police department and the fire department, these things, I mean, we're planning on training together, so we'll work these kinks out. Because if you just do it fly by night, I mean, some of the old concepts were not any good. So we're trying to get that we're all on the same playing field at the same time.
Yeah. It'd be the same thing if we had to call New Hanover County for hazardous waste or chemical spill. The fire department, they can't tell them what to do either. Hazardous response will be doing what hazardous response does. And Chris may be the lead person at that moment, but he is not the lead person over that identity that's providing that service.
In other words, if you have a drowning or a boat capsized, Chris is not going out there.
Well,
So they would go.
just for the drowning last year when we were all out there, water rescue was there, fire was there, police was there. Chris was the commander at that point. And they were radioing back and everybody was on the frequency they needed to be on. So Chris was making sure that he had what he needed. The police was making sure the crowd was, everybody had their assigned task.
Right.
And nobody was stepping on each other's feet because they know what they were doing. And then as the things progressed, they did what they do and they take the body and everything was sort of laid out.
I think what should happen here, and it sounds like you're moving in that direction, right? The ICS protocols with the agencies most likely to come into contact with one another are written and they're tabletopped, and then you train them so that it reduces the margin for confusion, right? Because I've been through that with schools where you have multiple agencies responding, right? And the whole ICS structure has to click in. It has to be instant. You're not going to be standing there figuring it out. So I'm encouraged that you're going to train. I would hope that they'd be reduced to writing so everybody understands how that's going to work. And it seems to me that your domain's pretty clear, what you do, your specialization. But in an incident that is ambiguous, you could have, 3 or 4 agencies all there at the same time. So I would encourage you to have written protocols. It sounds like you're working out your ICS protocols, tabletop them with the police, fire, et cetera, county, and then train.
That's our goal. That's what we're working on.
I was faintly smiling under my breath that you didn't notice it when you said we all work together and we are training together. So I know your people are conscientious and take a lot of pride in the work they do. So I have zero reservations there. I was just glad to hear that everybody's working together. So when that comes up, everybody's working together. So it'll get there, in my opinion.
Okay, back to the matter at hand.
One question. Do you have contracts with any other municipalities within Brunswick County?
No. The only other contract, it's with the county itself to provide a service, because they provide about $9,000 worth of funding, and so it's the same basic thing that we can provide a service if we're able to, basically. And actually, as I discussed a couple sessions ago, we are in the process talking with the Sheriff's Department and trying to do some training with them. Like he said, at Lake Waccamaw, that when they're searching for a body, they need a lot of boat operators because it takes a lot of time sometimes. If we'd be interested, and we said, of course, we'd help them respond. We weren't called out this time, but there's the potential for something like that. I'm starting to work with Tri-Beach and Sunset. We want to get cooperation working between them. I go to the chiefs' meetings now, the fire chiefs, so that we're trying to work on the relationships so that, because Lockwood Folly, they may get there quicker than we are, even though it may be on our side of the island. It doesn't matter. If they get saved, I'm all good with it. So if we can all work together, I'm happy. And that's the whole goal that I'm trying to do. There's no set contract with anybody else, though.
Okay.
So the only other question that we've gotten internally from citizens that called and asked about this question, they said that they know the town contributes, I think, $20,000 last year, some number. And we've done that over the last few years to help buy equipment and those kind of things. The question that the person had was, when you receive a call from like Holden Beach, or something like that, when you respond to that, do you leave people or equipment back behind if something happened in Oak Island who paid for that equipment and that equipment went somewhere else?
Well, it's like the fire department gets called out to another town. They're paid there. It's a mutual aid type of thing. Again, we would assess what they're asking for us to respond with. We have a unique asset in terms of the hovercraft. That, unfortunately, that's been called out to Bald Head twice, which we were never going to take over there because we couldn't get it over there. But again, that's the purpose of my job, and the officers I'm trying to bring up now will evaluate the call and determine what equipment we can send. You never try to strip all the resources of the local community. We're fortunate enough that we don't have that many calls back to back. The potential is there. I mean, if we were a larger community, when we grow larger, you know, again, you got to reevaluate every call, what's going on right now on your community. The community takes response is the first priority. Helping the neighbors, you can do that if you have enough resources. I mean, that's the basis of it. That's everything that I've done in the fire departments before. You always take care of your community first, and you helped out when you could.
That's sort of what we told them, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the question was more related to just utilization of resources. So you bring up the fire department, we have multiple stations, a larger team, more assets. So yes, mutual aid is a little easier for the fire department to go cover. You have a smaller unit with less assets, and you're based out of Oak Island on land that you lease from us at a very good price, and money that we give you to buy equipment to provide mutual aid. So I think the question was more aligned to, you know, are there assets that would be left behind if you're responding to a mutual aid call in another part of the county, and yet we have an emergency ourselves? And probably more related to, what are the CCOM protocols? I would assume that CCOM, if they get a 911 call that's related to some sort of water event, that they would automatically also dispatch the fire department as well. Is that not, like, are you exclusively dispatched from CCOM for an event, or is it always a mutual dispatch where they're calling fire and you at the same time?
We can be, it's been done both ways. Usually the fire department's dispatched also, but sometimes we got dispatched to the plane crash. Well, our fire department wasn't dispatched to that one. So we got dispatched, but that was because Bald Head was coming from that side, and we were dealing with the Coast Guard also. So it's, again, sometimes we're with the fire department, sometimes we're not, sometimes we're with the police department. It all depends what the call is and where it is and how it came into CCOM.
And I'm glad you brought up the Coast Guard. So when the Coast Guard shows up on the scene, they trump everybody. Isn't that correct?
Not necessarily.
The event.
No. Again, they follow the incident command system. They're the ones that taught me in the 300 and 400 levels. Again, as they've told us, we are the shallow water rescuers. They are the deep water rescuers. We're not going to go 15 miles out to rescue a tanker. Though if they called us and the conditions are right, we'd probably go help them a little bit. But they can't get in close to shore where we can. In fact, we've been helping them now echo map some of the back creeks nets so they can find quicker ways to get into the ICW from their station, because they didn't have the capability to do that. So yeah, we're working closely with them, and when we need to, yeah, I'll be in charge of if I'm incident commander and it's my rescue right here, I'm the one that requests the Coast Guard to come in to give us assistance. And that's what my goal as an incident commander is supposed to be. I can call for the Marine unit and all of them. At that time, in fact, we had the buoys out there where they thought the swimmers at. We had the sheriff's boat come out, said, hey, do you need requests? Yes, we need it. Okay, the second time, no, we've already determined we don't need your asset. Thank you very much. You can cancel and go back to your regular dues. So it all depends on the circumstances. Sometimes the Coast Guard's gonna be in charge. Sometimes I'll be in charge. Sometimes it's gonna be Bald Head Island's gonna be in charge because they were the incident commander.
Thank you.
Questions all answered?
I believe so. Thank you. I'll make
Yep.
the motion to approve the contract as presented.
All in favor? 4 yeas, 1 nay.
Did you call for opposed?
You have to
You-
call. you
Did
have to
you
call for
vote?
the-
Call.
Okay. Yay, okay. Got to keep your hand up so I can see it. Consideration of a lease for the land of the Oak Island Rescue Station, pages 134, 138.
I only have one question. Is there a reason why we're only doing a year rather than the,
There is an excellent reason for that. The advertising requirements for doing a lease for longer than a year meant that we would have had to put this lease onto the June meeting, and we have budget and so much else coming down for the June meeting that we just thought if we do a year for now, then we can revisit it again next year.
got it? I'll make a motion to approve the lease with Oak Island Water Rescue subject to the town attorney's final review.
Second.
All in favor? Did you raise your hand already? You're not approving it.
All opposed?
All opposed? Okay, there you go. 4 to 1. Thank you. Consideration of renewing the lease of the town's building in the Yapon area to Matthew Ministry, page 139 to 145.
We will ask Ms. Stites to address this one too.
This lease is for Matthew's Ministry. It's an organization that provides food to school children in the county, and they've been doing that for a number of years. Our former Development Services building, former Utv Beach Town Hall, has been leased to them for a number of years to do that. And this renewal, again, would just be for a year. And I think the dollar amount is $1.
Questions?
Charitable endeavor that we're facilitating. I'll make the motion to approve it.
I second,
All in favor?
100%.
Unanimous. Moving right along. Discussion of beach access parking. This, you, Mr. Kraft.
Somewhere along the way in this busy tourist season, we're going to have to address paid parking someday. We're going to have to address right-of-way parking someday. But sooner rather than later, I think we need to discuss and wrap our heads around beach access parking. It's come to my attention that numerous areas up and down the beach, some cars get there on Monday and they stay until Friday or Saturday, and beach access is not available for our residents. So if we talk about just doing decal parking in our beach access, or if we talk about 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. 2-hour parking in our beach access, but I'd like to have some discussion going as to what we can do so our residents can park at the beach access easier.
I love that idea, but who's going to enforce that?
If we don't pursue something because we don't know who's going to enforce it, then we're never protecting our people. If it gets enforced 50% of the time, that's 50% more than we're enforcing it now.
Well, I'll say this, undoubtedly, no matter how you define the circumstance, parking is an issue, has been an issue, and will be an issue. We have not been able to solve the parking problem for a variety of reasons, but primarily because the right-of-way solutions are difficult to come by because they impinge on past practice and what people perceive as their rights. Paid parking has its own set of devils. To me, this discussion belongs in the paid parking right-of-way, the big picture discussion, which is coming in the fall. I think we've agreed to that tacitly, that once we pass the budget and we get beyond that and the sand solution, we're going to take it up and we're going to see if we can solve it. I can assure you, having been there, having gone up that hill and died on that hill, that this is going to divide our community down the middle. There is no easy way to solve this. If you, by solving it, you think you're going to get a plurality of people to say, oh, bravo, that's exactly the way I wanted to do it. Can it be solved? Yes. It's going to take a really difficult decision. And unfortunately, like all things, it's going to involve practical matters, like who is going to enforce it? How will it be done? How will we message it? You know, how will we be fair and equitable? So I like the question you're raising, Bill, I really do. And I want to come back to it. When we take this up, if we do, if we have the courage to take it up, this is going to be part of it. But as an ad hoc, you know, kind of one piece aside, I think it might cause more frustration and angst that it's going to solve right now.
And I appreciate that, except for the fact that June, July, and August, our residents are going to have very little access to beach access because we haven't put in any protections for them. I know eventually we're going to cross that bridge and come up with some solutions to difficult questions, but I would like to see us come up with something in June for beach access parking for our residents. So, wallow in it.
I would like to point out something. I am in agreement with both Councilmember Kraft and Councilmember Bach. Mr. Kraft, I would actually like to propose that we expand your conversation. This council has seen text in the past around parking in the right-of-way. We know that conversation is coming in order to fix or prepare for paid parking. The text has been presented to this board before, and I would propose that we go ahead and have the conversation tonight around banning overnight parking in the public right-of-way in general, not just, let's not narrow the conversation to just beach access parking. Let's go ahead and revisit the conversations that this board has had around overnight parking. And we can take care of that sooner rather than later. And then when we come to paid parking, that's not even a discussion anymore because we've already solved that problem. We just said no overnight parking in the public right-of-way. So then in the fall, when paid parking comes, we don't even have to worry about that. That's done. We fixed that problem. So I had asked staff to dig up that text from the last time this discussion was brought up. Did we successfully find that, Lisa?
We looked at it, but I mean, we don't have it here for the
Okay.
council to look at. And if you're going to pass an ordinance, it has to be reduced to writing before you adopt it. So we have to have something in writing for you to look at before.
Let me suggest that if that is your proposal, we find the text, and we get a chance to examine it and put it on the July meeting and broaden the scope of this. But I can tell you right now, past practice, for whatever it's worth, was 72 hours. Now, there are lots of solutions to that. Register the car, your family's visiting, get a pass you know, but to just snap your fingers and change it, I don't think is good practice. So let's put it on the agenda and we can take it up. I'm not so sure this document is as serviceable as you may think it is, but I'm willing to go back and look at it because we have done a lot of toing and froing, Texas, three-step about right-of-way parking. And again, I'm going to just speak the truth here. Somebody's ox is going to get gored with these solutions, right? So right now, if your family's visiting, or my family, they can park in the right-of-way, and it's simply not an issue. And I know who they are, and it's not a problem, and they're not on the pavement, and no one's going to ticket them. But if you ban it, then you're going to have a system to allow family members, especially in the smaller, older homes, to have off-street, on-street parking. But we can deal with all that. We can start with whatever the text from I don't know when this text is dated.
I don't remember offhand.
We'll find it, whatever it is.
It's at least 2 years old.
That's why I wanted to open the can of worms. Let's get the can of worms open, let's take a look at it, let's get a solution.
Well, be careful what you open. Be careful what landmine you step on. We'll see. We've got a text, that's a place to start, so, right? And it can be modified, and it was never adopted, and there was a reason it wasn't adopted, so we'll go from there.
I agree with Mr. Bach on that. I think if you try to do it in an instant, you're gonna have a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misunderstanding, and a lot of people mad at each other. That's what you're gonna end up with. So we need time to put the plan together and educate the people as to why we're doing it and when it will go into effect, as opposed to just springing it on them overnight.
Fair enough, I agree. Charlie has spoken.
So we're going to leave this as is for now.
We're going to bring
that
it
what I
back
understand?
in, well, I don't want to make Mr. Martin's motion, but it seems to me that he's suggesting we resurrect this text and we look at it in July, because June is already promised to the budget.
Is that what you want to do?
And that, I think, incorporates Councilman Kraft's motion, but goes beyond that. Would that be fair?
Right, if Councilmember Kraft is okay with that we revisit this in July with a broader scope, then.
But if we're presenting the budget May the 17th to the public, all we're going to have to do is approve the budget in June, correct?
Well, there'll be public hearing.
There's another hearings.
Okay.
All I know is, and we've talked about this in the 2-on-2s that we had, and the chief addressed this issue earlier. This year, we've been handling the dunes, and we're trying to come up with a dune plan to come up with how to monitor the parking and accesses and right-of-ways. Now I'm throwing an additional duty on to the chief to say, you've got 30 days to figure out how you're going to start enforcing these. We're going to fail right off the bat. I can go ahead and tell you that. And
July 60 days.
well, either way, it's not going to be a pretty thing. I'd love to be able to sit here and say we fixed it, but we're not fixing it. We're just creating another layer of, we need to do something, and we need to figure out how we're going to do it before we take an action on what we're going to do.
And that's all fine, but somewhere along the way, our people who pay taxes in Oak Island should not drive up to a beach access and see 12 cars with Ohio license plates there day after day after day. We can treat them better. So that's all I want to get out on the table and see where we go with it.
I think if that would be a new program, so to speak, and I think we need to make sure that the chief has the capacity, staff-wise, to be able to implement it.
Need some more people.
He's stepped up in a stellar fashion to, in response to our request for beach supervision. And before that's even out of the box, we want the same people to go do something else. So I would agree that if this makes more sense to address wholesale in the fall and be able to deal with the implications of the budget in January.
It does, and that, my perspective is that we need to take it over the long term and try to create a system that we can actually enforce, that achieves the impact we desire, and so on and so forth. But if Mr. Martin and Mr. Kraft are insistent, and then they can craft a legislative proposal for the July meeting, and we'll entertain it, and we'll see. Right? 'Cause but I'm not going to write your legislation because I don't want to do it in July, so go at it, gentlemen.
Thank you for your permission.
You don't need my permission, you need my vote ultimately.
I've already got two. We'll
I
see what
see,
happens in
I
July.
see both sides of it. So do we have a motion here?
No, just discussion.
Yeah, it was a discussion item.
Just a discussion, okay, so,
I'll make a motion to go into closed session to consult with the town attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to
beat me to it.
NCGS 143-318-11A3.
You beat me to it. Thank you very
Second.
much.
I want to discuss it.
All in favor?
I don't want to go into closed session, but I don't think I have a choice.
Reluctantly.
Good evening, we're back from closed session. Mr. Eads?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No action was taken in closed session, so a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Can we
It's
discuss it?
unanimous.
Can we discuss it?
No, we cannot.
Good night, y'all.
No.